But Metatron, where is your reply to the lady of the library? Metatron, you didn't reply to the lady of the library. I thought you were gonna reply to the lady of the library. I can't believe you didn't reply to the lady of the library. You didn't make the reply. Why didn't you make the reply? You didn't make the reply. Are you scared? Why not reply now? Free not replying. Why didn't you make the reply? Not even a single video about the lady of the library. Round 2, baby. Hello? Yeah, can I get a doctor's note, please? Just right. Metatron needs to sleep. It's a biological need. Thank you. Sit down. Hello, number ones. Welcome back to my channel. This is the man of the library speaking. And look at this. We've got a response. My response to Metatron, that would be me. Historical accuracy and the Odyssey from the lady of the library. Lore recap. She made a video, I made a video, she made a video, and now I made another video. Nolan. Alright, so we're gonna jump right into it, but I do want to say this. She was extremely cordial, decent, zero ad hominem attacks, just approached all of my arguments with respect, and I really appreciate that. Now, given some of the things she brings up are bullshit, but this is how it's done. I really appreciate this, like the way she approached this, because, you know, usually when people make videos and said videos have my name either on the thumbnail or the title, it's a strawman fest. Lies, poison in the well, personal attacks, it's ridiculous. So, how about, you know, it's not that difficult to be decent, that is. It's really not that difficult. It's not complicated not to be an absolute raging lunatic scumbag poison vomiting troglodyte. So, I would like to say massive thank you for Lady of the Library to be respectful and decent. Without further ado, that's a lot of further ado. As always, what do you want from me? You subscribe to me. And I never get to the point.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, I feel so alive. I haven't had an excuse to channel my autism into a video this much in years.
Splendid.
Oh, this was a joy to write. I loved every moment of it. So, if you're unfamiliar, this is an extensive response to Metatron, who recently reacted to my last video about the second Odyssey trailer.
One could call it reacception.
And my comments on how Wilson's translation of the Odyssey is being misrepresented, in my opinion. Whilst I was enthusiastic to watch Metatron's video the first time, I was initially cautious because his audience's reputation precedes him. But you know what? I will say this, I was pleasantly surprised. He was not only respectful to me, I found many of the moments of the video funny. He's actually very, very funny at times.
I agree.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, very funny, very funny. One might even begin to think that when Redditors call me a Nazi fascist racist totalitarian lunatic, they may be full of shit. Ever thought about that?
very, very funny at times. Unfortunately, the dominant side of his audience that came to my channel lived up to their reputation, but you know what? He didn't, ironically. Based on his own audience's comments on my channel, they didn't listen to him because they say wild statements on my channel that he openly states the contrary on his video. So do I...
Yeah, you know, I would just, so of course, let me say this. Obviously, any form of harassment that she has received, I strongly disagree with that. I think it's out of place. She's a lovely lady. I completely disagree with the political takes for what I've seen so far. But I gotta say, this video, there are a few things she said. I'm like, anyways, regardless, doesn't matter. Even if, when I say it again, even if we ended up disagreeing, 99.7.5% of all of her takes, just calm down. There is no reason to go and harass her. She's not Hassan Piker, guys. She's not Destiny, all right? We need to be able to discern between the fucking scumbags on the left and people like her. She's a lovely person, and we need to be able to disagree politely with the likes of her while not being so polite with the people that deserve it. It's really that simple. It's a matter of deserving it. Does she deserve it? No. So, no harassment, please. But then again, since I am pedantic, you do say it's the dominant side of my community, but it really isn't. It's a loud minority, because if it were the dominant side of my community, you wouldn't have found, mathematically speaking, you probably received what? 100 bad comments, 200 bad comments under your video which were offensive. Right, but my video got almost 100,000 views. So that is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. If it was the dominant side of my community, you would have been flooded. Likewise, your community. You got some nasty Denisovans in your community too, which said all sorts of things about me. For instance. Alright guys, let's learn from this very respectful community that really shows us what empathy, tolerance, open-mindedness, progressive behavior. Look at them. Look at this. Just so you know what we are dealing with, at the very end, the last word here is a Northern Italian slang word that is used by some people in the North, and they use it as a derogatory term against us Southern because they consider us inferior. Doesn't bother me since this little coward doesn't have the courage to tell me to my face, but I imagine it would bother you, Cinzia, considering your line of thinking. To this one specifically, I say, don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Do I think that this represents the dominant side of your community? Probably not, so it is what it is.
I expect all those kind of people to actually watch my response video, particularly in full. No.
Yeah, they won't.
They have their opinions, and they're known to be a little bit close-minded for that reason.
These instead from her community are very, very open-minded, one would even say tolerant people.
But Metatron himself asked me some really interesting questions, and I wanted to answer them sincerely.
Splendid.
Now, as you can see from the length of this video, I've given him extensive answers to everything he asked. And the reason I've done that is I believe he asked me in sincerity for my opinion on things, or how I looked at things, etc. Am I
Holy moly, 1 hour and 20 minutes, 16 seconds. She's wow, she means business.
going to change his mind? No, but that's not the intention here.
You might, by the way. I would like to underline this. This is going to be a long one. You might. I mean, I'm always ready to be proven wrong. I'm happy to. It's just that in order to be proven wrong, all I require is data, evidence, logics, and reason. But the problem is that usually people that make response videos to me, particularly if they're on the left of center like you, differently from you, what they do, they try to use shaming tactics. Or I say, I don't like Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy, and they translate that into, are you saying you don't want to see black people on screen? Which never was my point. So, that's never gonna change my mind. Because it's bullshit. But you, however, if anyone is gonna change my mind on any of these stuff, it would be the likes of you. And I mean that as a compliment. Let's go.
There are things that we will fundamentally disagree on, but I hope that this video showcases that leftist ideas or leftist academics aren't as black and white and emotionally driven that the right often characterises as.
More than happy to see how that works out, but let's go.
So, Metatron, you may be regretting your decision to respond to me by the length of this video, but hey, you ask questions, I deliver.
With that being said, there's two of me. Don't go harass her, okay? Be nice in the comments, because I just want to say it. I kind of like her channel. I like her presentation style. She sounds like a very intelligent, very learned woman. I appreciate her passion for the classics, given she's very left-wing. And usually left-wingers in the context of history and culture piss me off. I double down on that.
See, even when you yell at me, I can see love in your eyes.
Stick to the subject.
You love me.
Okay, on a random note, it's always really lovely to hear my name pronounced correctly by someone, but it's even more wonderful to hear it actually said by a Sicilian. Yes, my name is Cinzia, and...
Oh, you see, so she does have an Italian name. That's what I thought, because the way it's spelled, it's exactly how we spell it in Italy, Cinzia. So, alright, cool.
And that is as Italian as I get, because there is nothing Italian about me after that. And I do mean this genuinely. Thank you for being kind about me in this, and also for encouraging your audience not to harass me, although many of them did not listen.
Alright, let's have a look at this. I'm gonna have a field day. Let's see. What have we got? So, it's unfortunate your grandmother survived the Blitz. I do not understand. What are they saying? That she's Jewish? Is that what it is? Pack it in, bro. Come on. You're better than that. Come on. This one. Vlad Sinister. I'm gonna make your life a living hell. Bro, Vlad, if you're watching this, come on, man. Why would you waste your time making her life a living hell while you could do that to the likes of a Sam Piker? Not that I am pushing for that kind of stuff, but come on. Bro, no need. Is this girl a Jew? Irrelevant. Next. Annoying, insufferable leftist, so in love with her own voice, she never gets to the point. And neither do I get to the point. I do agree, though, that some leftists are very insufferable. Absolutely. But I don't think she's one of those. But hey, at least that's, I guess this is this person's opinion, whatever. I hope your mind is painting a wall soon. Oh, it's this Vlad Sinister guy. Vlad Sinister. What the fuck are you doing, bro? There's no need. There's no need to do this. Like, come on. I commented, I suggest you leave cat videos, Miss Libertarian. You're unfit to speak about Homer's epic. Okay, look, it's not nice, but the cat thing is kind of funny. She's not a cat lady. She's got a fiance. She's not a cat lady, okay? Right, the top one, man, he wrote a freaking odyssey himself. She's using the fallacious argument of you haven't read the book because she has no real arguments, typical of someone with a low IQ. And she's dishonest enough to criticize white people who have always been the majority in Greece while defending Lupita, who is a dark-skinned African woman who would never have been considered beautiful in ancient Greece. Alright, so when it comes to this last comment here, I think you did use that fallacious argument of I read the book, you didn't. You did, but let's not call it low IQ because she clearly isn't. She did criticize white people, so that's true. That's what I mean, though. This is a good opportunity to learn for the people in my community who didn't listen to my no harassment policy. But before we continue, let's have a word from today's sponsor. Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their platforms could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of up to $1,000. The moment you have to go to she's a Jew, low IQ, cat lady, leftard, and all that kind of stuff, you are using your own argument against you. Because if your argument is so strong, you will not need to go to personal attacks. So the moment you do end up using personal attacks, you are the one who doesn't have a strong argument. All right.
To you, and they did not reflect the example that you set in your video.
Right.
And, although I did see you being a little cheeky in your comment section, liking a few comments that were not so nice about me, you're far from shy about the fact that you love to be a little bit of a shit talker, so...
Oh yeah, I'm a troller, right? I'll have to see which ones I hearted. I don't remember, to be honest. I'm pretty sure I didn't heart anything that said to put your brains on the wall, though, let's be honest.
I won't hold it against you. But I say that I do hope my community, or those who watch this channel, are respectful. Respectful entirely, focusing on arguments or positions, not personhood. Let's always focus on things that people say, not who they are as a person. Also,
thank you. They were not. But I do appreciate your no harassment position. We should always do that.
So, for transparency's sake, I need to talk about the structure of my video.
Please.
Because I broke up the questions thematically. In his video, Metatron talks about subjects in a more spontaneous way, which made it a bit more scattered. So,
also known as havoc, chaos of mind. I'm a mess. I agree.
So what I have done is do my best to collate questions or opinions that he said and organise them thematically. So the clips that you will see him in my video don't appear in that order in his video.
I'm of course going to move things around as well. Such a well-organized consecutio does not belong to my channel, so I'm going to scatter it a little bit and I'm going to respond to the ones I want in the order I want, but there's that.
Now, I hope he and others understand that I've done this editing in complete good faith.
Yeah, that's fine.
What I've done is I've collected the same points of view that he expresses in multiple different ways and condensed them down into a topic, purely so I can condense the argument in my response to it. I will do my best, obviously, in editing to make sure that I have the complete context or some kind of reference to what we're talking about.
Man, how long did this take to edit?
So you're not completely blinded. But obviously, if you are in doubt, please go watch his video in full so you have the full picture. And right at the beginning, we're going to go through a rapid fire because there were a few questions Metatron asked me that don't require in-depth. I'll just give the answers here.
Yeah.
So one, yes, I have been to the Mediterranean.
I love that.
I've primarily been to Italy, but I have been to Crete and Spain.
Wow.
And additionally, my linguistic background, I specialise in Latin at university.
I do think that's very based. That's very cool. So on the Mediterranean, on the Latin part based, on the Mediterranean section, so how did you not see that a lot of Mediterraneans look like me? That would be my natural comeback to that, because you kind of, on your original video, you were kind of depicting this idea that unless you are dark-skinned or have a having a very, very tanned skin, you can't really be Mediterranean if your skin is too white. So if you've been to the Mediterranean and Italy, you know that the majority of us look like me. So then I have to I'm glad you've been. It kind of confuses me though. Anyways, Latin, you were saying Latin, yes.
Because really, I preferred Roman history.
Double-based!
Now Latin's completely useless. I don't need it for my subject at all.
Yeah, that's such a shame that you can't really use it that much, so we should bring the Empire back.
I went up to advanced Latin in my final year at university. I am by no means a translator, so I read French and Latin, and as for ancient Greek, I never got taught it. I had to pick between Latin and ancient Greek. So I only know ancient Greek based off how I use my dictionary and my textbooks that I have for learning ancient Greek by yourself, but I have to use a dictionary when reading it. And
You don't need to learn it for yourself. You can just subscribe to the channel Polymathy. Good friend of the channel, Luke Ranieri, phenomenal teacher of both ancient Greek and Latin. You already know the Latin, so strongly suggest. I'll put the link in the description.
I say that because I actually really appreciated you reiterating the pronunciation of some of the words, because
What, in Greek? Oh, no, I'm not the guy I haven't got a clue what I'm doing with Greek. No idea what I'm doing with Greek. With Latin, yes, but you already know it. You know the phonemic vowel length, I suppose, and yeah.
because I'm really dyslexic and I struggle with phonetics and I just don't hear it, so thanks. And particularly one video on YouTube that has over 1.7 million.
Oh, she's gonna tell us who she was talking about. Woo-hoo-hoo! Because look, this is actually the part of an investigation now. Because in my comment section, I thought she meant Asmongold, because she said that the video in question that talked about the translation of the Odyssey had reached 1.7 million views, which was exactly the number of views at the times of recording that Asmongold's video reached. But then people in my comment section went nuts. They were like, no, she wasn't talking about Asmongold, she was talking about Critical Drinker. And someone else said, no, she was talking about Matt Walsh. And someone else was like, no, she was talking about Gary from Nerdrotic. And so basically everyone has a different theory. Finally, guys, we'll find out. Who the heck were you talking about?
Views.
That's Asmongold, isn't it? That's Wait. I'm the one at the bottom. For the investigation to be thorough. Yes, I don't think she's gonna say it. She didn't. Wait. I agree with myself. Might as well say it at this point.
One, it's not Asmongold. You were told this, I think, in your comment section much. It wasn't Asmongold. I'm afraid I don't know who that is. I've never seen.
What? You don't know the king of the streams? Come on. Asmongold, the Roach King, the one and only. You probably wouldn't be a fan, I would imagine. But he's the king. He's number one. Twitch, Kick, everywhere. Number one.
Seen them, and it's just unfortunate that his video had exactly 1.7 million views
on the same topic
at the time that I did my recording. But again, I
Unbelievable.
stick to my principles. I don't name creators in the.
Oh, come on. You're going to continue. All right, guys, at this point, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll in the comments. Who do you think she was talking about? Was it Critical Drinker? Was it Matt Walsh? Was it Nerdrotic? Was it someone else entirely? Who the heck got... Why is everyone, by the way, getting 1.7 million views when they talk about the Odyssey and not me, the king of this grift? Because Asmongold is the king of streamers, but I'm the king of the Odyssey. So why do I not? Where is my 1.7 exactly million views? I don't get it.
These circumstances purely because my video wasn't about them and I didn't want it to reflect them. It was their comment that made me realise that there was a perception around Emily Wilson's translation that was being regurgitated and that I was aware of at that moment, and that creator brought it to light. And I doubt this creator was the original perpetrator of that perception of Emily Wilson's translation. I think they read it elsewhere.
I'm going to skip around a little bit. We'll come back to this. Let's have a look at the race stuff.
So, the discussion of Black Helen, that people are so desperate for me to cover. Here is my groundbreaking declaration. Helen of Troy wasn't black in the text.
Based. Now that we have stated a fact, why haven't you complained about her then?
And if she were a real historical figure and not a demigod that was born from a swan egg, it is historically inaccurate to have a black woman playing the Queen of Sparta.
So you just publicly disagreed with The View and Sunny. That makes you honorary far-right in the minds of these people, just so you know. Thank you very much. So, when are you joining the alt-right?
There, I said it. It's not that controversial. Nor is it even an academic position. It's pretty obvious to the vast majority of people that what history really was, but now...
Okay, fantastic. Then I'm sure you will make 15 debunking videos when it comes to The View, Sunny.
And so I covered this. So people that are saying that Helen of Troy could not possibly be played by a black woman don't know history.
But what is it?
Wanna bet? Bro, I swear that's Mugface. That was a little bit from my own video where I responded to The View, considering the fact that we both agree. I'm sure you won't have a problem with the statements that I make on that video, but here's the thing. When I say it, they call me far right, so be nice to see someone like you say it, that they're full of shit, the misinterpretation of Black Athena. I can point you towards a few, channels that I've clashed with over the centuries at this point. Do think that that is exactly the correct interpretation when it comes to literally any people that has ever peopled. Sorry. sorry to interrupt.
Are two things to address here. First, people's offence to the casting, and then secondly, my personal opinions on it, because Metatron asked for those.
Yeah.
So in Metatron's video and the comments section, there is a distinctive argument being used to explain the rage towards the black woman.
Yeah, Greek people are mad. I mean, don't they matter? Greek lives matter, guys. The Greeks. Because you see, I really appreciate the fact that she said, yeah, Helen of Troy was not black. Obviously, academically makes no sense. So yeah, we go great. But now you've got to explain why you didn't say a word about it, while you in fact said she was a great casting for, who was it, Penelope? You said it would be a great casting. So I don't know how she's going to get out of this now. Now that she has admitted the truth. The truth. I'm screaming. Now that she has admitted the truth, how is she going to defend the fact that she said Penelope would be a great casting for... Lupita Nyong'o? But then you were complaining about the white skin. So that's a question. That's a question.
Playing Helen of Troy. So the main argument appears to be that Lupita's casting is regarded as an offence to the Greeks and to Mediterranean culture and to heritage.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is. This is our culture, this is our history. Okay, you're British, I'm Mediterranean. This is my side of the world. We do not want people to race swap us.
Now, my question really there is why she seems to be the target of the ire, because she is no less Greek or Mediterranean than the other actors in this film.
Oh, so that's the angle you're going to go for. All right, well, I'm going to let her finish, but just so we're clear, her point is Lupita Nyong'o, being Black African, is as different from a Mediterranean man or woman than someone from England, Ireland, Northern Europe, Germany. That's the point, right? Of Anglo-Saxon ancestry. That's the point. Yeah, I'll debunk it. Let's see if she's going to flesh it out.
So by that logic, all the cast should be equally an offence to the Greek and Mediterranean culture.
Not equally.
Now, honestly, I actually cared more about the main characters of the Odyssey because Helen flicks in and out. She doesn't dominate the film. But I have said from the very beginning that it should have been an entirely Greek or Mediterranean.
Okay, so she's diverting now. Right, okay, so let me respond to that. And I would like to, this is a criticism, but I would like to show that not only I don't agree with you, but by the time I'm done with this rebuttal, neither will you. And here is why. An actor from Ireland, an actor from England is, or at this point, an actor from Scandinavia, is as distant or equally different from a Mediterranean man or woman from ancient Greece or modern Greece than someone from Africa. This is not true. No, a black African is more different to any European, phenotypically, biologically, and scientifically, and I'll prove it to you. Now, we're going to go into the biology of it, because in fact, black people are the most phenotypically diverse people in the planet. So that already will demonstrate with science that the distance is greater. But we don't even need the science to prove it. We just need logics. Think about it. Let's say you have a historical Japanese woman. That's a character. The actress that is being played is Chinese or Vietnamese. Do all Asians look the same? The answer is no. So there is phenotypic difference between a Chinese, a Vietnamese, a Filipino, a Korean. There is a phenotypic difference between Asians. Someone from Vietnam, someone from Tibet, and someone from Japan, they are all from Asia. They share some phenotypic traits, but they are distinct in others. So we can say that if you cast someone from Vietnam, Tibet, some areas of China, as a Japanese historical character, they don't look the same. And that could be, depending on the person, easily recognizable. But are we going to pretend that if you cast someone from Scandinavia to play the Japanese woman, is going to be equally different? The answer is no. The European is going to look more different to the native Japanese. It's just obvious. It's a fact. To prove this to you, the movie Memory of a Geisha is casting a Chinese woman as the actress for the Japanese girl. But to be fair, while some Asians look more different than others, It's not as easy to tell that she was not Japanese when dressed up in makeup. But you could put all the makeup you want on a European woman, you will never convince someone, oh, that could be a Japanese. Okay? So, by the same logics, you can absolutely have some people, Nordic country, from England, from Germany, and yeah, you can tell that they are physically different from Southern Europeans, but not as phenotypically different as someone from Black Africa. So much so that sometimes you can get a Danish guy with black hair, you can get an Irish man that, if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't know he was an Italian, particularly if you dress him up and place him in Italy. Other times, I can tell. But this idea that the distance between an Irish, a Frenchman, and a German, and someone from Greece or Sicily is the same as someone from Congo or Côte d'Ivoire or Nigeria is just a virtual signal. I don't think you don't believe it. I think you do believe it. But that's the problem. You believe it because it makes you sound less racist. Now, there is nothing racist about what I said, but the problem in some left-wing circles is that even if you mean no racism at all, you gotta be careful how you say things. So, what you said now makes it sound like, oh, you're so inclusive and open-minded. And I'm not making fun of you, but I'm making fun about the logics of it or lack thereof. Because you don't see that we are all distant the same, and we're not. Here's the science for it. You see, African populations harbor the greatest genetic phenotypic diversity according to molecular genetics and whole genome sequence data across a broad geographic range. That's due to extensive population substructure, the largest number of population-specific alleles, and less linkage disequilibrium among the loci, together with the heritable variation in human genome. Africa is an important region to study human genetic diversity due to several factors such as climate variation, diet, exposure to infectious disease, a number of demographic factors such as selection, mutation, recombination, and gene conversion, which result in the above-mentioned genetic and phenotypic variation within population clusters. So yeah, that's my response to that. It's not equally distant. It just isn't. In fact, put me with a Spanish guy, we probably look like brothers.
The moment I found out that Nolan had cast famous Hollywood actors, because I'd really hoped he wouldn't. You know, he has the reputation, he has the influence, he does not need big names to pull people in to see his films. I would have loved to have seen...
Exactly, so why did he do it? DEI, woke. And if you don't want me to use the word woke because people on the right overuse it and literally call everything woke, I get it. Well, let's ditch the word for a moment. Let's not use the word woke. It is DEI though. Why else would he have done it if not to appease the rest of the devil-worshipping circles that are running modern-day Hollywood? There is no other reason. As you yourself said, and I agree with you, they should have been all Greek. He didn't need to cast AAA actors. Why did he do it? On top of that, why did he race swap? The reason is staring us at the face. The reason he did it is because he needed to show how anti-racist he is, he needed to show how diverse and inclusive he is, at the expense of the Greeks, even though the other way around would never be pardoned. Would you pardon it? That's my next question. If you want to continue the discussion, I don't mind. Would you pardon the opposite? If you're okay, right, he didn't cast all Greeks, so we agree with that. We both wanted an all Greeks cast. Fantastic, he didn't do it. So, you clearly at one point in your previous video, unless you changed your position, you said you didn't think that the cast of Lupita was for Helen of Troy. You thought it would have been better for Penelope. But then that means that you're okay with the race swap of a white individual utilizing a black actor, or actress in this case. Would you be equally okay with Shaka Zulu being played by a white man? Because if the answer is yes, you'll be okay with it. I would be very surprised. But I think the answer is going to be no. Which shows you're not treating all people equally. I am for equality. Don't swap anyone. Which is why I'm not okay with them swapping the way they did.
A Greek or Cypriot or Mediterranean actors who are largely unknown to the English-speaking audiences to star in this film. And I mean, if you're really scared, you can still get a big-name Hollywood actor, but at least pick one that's Mediterranean-looking and then have other lesser-known to the English...
You see, you did say Mediterranean-looking, though, so yeah, exactly.
...speaking world actors around him. I mean, if you want my opinion, Oscar Isaac would have been a much better Odysseus choice than Matt Damon.
Cool.
But then this whole argument got me thinking about what people mean by like Mediterranean legitimacy. Because I wonder what would have been said if Nolan had indeed hired an entirely Greek or Mediterranean cast for his film and still chose a black Greek woman to play Helena Troy?
Problem. It would have been a problem because this one is more subtle. So I actually appreciate this one more than the previous one. Because the previous one, to be honest, they are all equally distant. Come on. You're just like literally denying biological reality at that point. This one is more subtle. So you're saying you're someone who is black but was born in Greece. So Greek is the language they speak. Maybe they haven't even met their parents from Africa. They're maybe an adoptive family. That would be better, in fact. Someone adopted, someone who speaks Greek, someone who is culturally Greek, but they look black African because of their ancestry. It would still be wrong. It would still be wrong unless the character they're playing was also someone who historically in 500 BC was a black person, but who was born in Greece. Do you see where I'm going with this? Even if you have an actor who is born in Greece, but they are of African descent, so they look black, they shouldn't be cast into a position whereby they are swapping or playing a character that we know looked like an ethnic Greek, because that's the difference. There is one thing called ethnic Greece or ethnic Greeks, and there is one thing that is someone who is born in Greece. They're Greek citizens, but they're not ethnically Greek. If you think that this statement is insulting or racist, then if my son was born in Africa, could he play Shaka Zulu? Let's say that my son was born in South Africa, but he would look like me. Would it be okay for him to play a historically black character? And the answer for me is no, because it's going to be a mess. Follow the accuracy. It's so much easier.
Would people still see her casting as offensive
Yes,
to
they
their
would.
culture because
Yes.
her ancient ancestors were not Greek? So even though she's Greek and her parents are Greek and her grandparents are Greek, and she is a representative of Greek people today, starring in a film of the country's culture, would they still say that she was an offensive choice? Or would
Yes, because it's a matter of ethnicity. You see, there is a difference between race and ethnicity. Ethnicity includes a lot of aspects, some of which she would have, or he. Like, language is part of ethnicity, religion is part of ethnicity, but so is genomic ancestry. It's difficult to be precise with it, but generally speaking, a people can tend to look alike.
the narrative change from being culturally offensive to just textually offensive? Because Helen is obviously white and blonde in the text. Which then made me think about who is considered legitimate in terms of culture. Because if a black Greek Helen would be subjected to the same ire as Lupita, what constitutes as culturally authentic to the role? So take myself, for example, I'm a former actress. I sound very obviously English. I was born in Britain, I have lived in Britain my entire life, but genetically speaking, I am 0% related to Britain in any way.
Okay.
My ancestry is predominantly Irish at 80%, and the rest of me is clearly from the Vikings, because I've got Scandinavian,
Cool.
I've got Eastern European, and then Middle Eastern, apparently, also. So if we're talking about ancestry, I would have no claim to play a role in a film about the Tudors or the Jacobeans or medieval England, because none of my ancestors
Right, but you look a lot like one. So just like you said, you kind of gave yourself your own answer. You said a Mediterranean-looking actor would also be acceptable. You are an English-looking actor. I mean, you are. I don't see much of a distinct. I would have never guessed. She sounds English, but is she originally ethnically from Ireland? I mean, it's not like you don't have. You know what I mean? We don't need to block physical external reality and things that we all know intuitively to be true because of political correctness. You can easily find a Spaniard or a Portuguese man who look a lot like an Italian. I have no problem with them casting the role of an Italian, particularly if the description matches of the historical character. Because remember, we're talking history here. The description matches, it's fine. Likewise, I would have zero problem with you being cast to play Tudor English, because again, there are plenty of English women that look like you. And there were in the Middle Ages too, just look at the iconography. Right? So intellectually, while it may sound that your argument makes sense, visually, the split second you look into it, you're like, yeah, but it's kind of obvious that, like, yeah, you could play an English woman. Of course you could.
were there, just like a black Greek Helen would have the same argument.
And let me tell you why. If you have a historical character from Congo, is anyone going to complain if you cast someone from Nigeria? Are you gonna? You wouldn't have complained about that. Think about it.
But as someone who has also never been to Ireland, let alone lived there, I also have no claim over playing any Irish roles either. So does that mean I have no culture that I'm part of? Or would my casting in a Tudor film be seen as offensive to the English?
Not a single Englishman would complain about that. Like, it's very hypothetical, no one would.
Or would I be allowed because I'm of the race that was dominant at the time?
Exactly. You would be allowed because you are of the race and ethnicity that was dominant at the time. That's exactly it. And in fact, I would have a problem instead if you were cast to play Queen Amanirenas of the Kingdom of Kush in Africa. Because you're not of that race. So if you race swap it, I'd be like, why are you deleting black history? She was an historically black woman. Do not cast a white role when you could have hired a skilled, talented black woman for the role that matches her ethnicity. It's really that simple.
I mean, that's my question. I'd like to pose that back.
That's my answer.
Back to people who are deeply upset by Lupita's casting over all the others, because quite honestly, I'm equally upset by the whole cast. I think it's all crap. I mean, if we're talking about castings in general, every Helen of Troy up until now has...
The reason why I don't think it's correct to be equally upset is because they're not race-swapping black people. They may have done in the 50s, fine, but right now, you know, when Hollywood was nascent, I guess they didn't have a Mongolian-looking actor, so they cast John Wayne, crying out loud, for Genghis Khan. Yeah, ridiculous. Although, then again, it was the beginning of Hollywood, where were all these... There wasn't as much talent, I guess, of ethnic minorities. But doing it now would be absolutely ridiculous. But no one is doing it. Yeah, maybe Gods of Egypt, which was in fact trash, and I think it was nonsense to do that. But in general, 99% of the time, it is white people that are being race-swapped. Do you agree with that fact? Do you agree with that fact? And that's why you shouldn't be equally upset. Because it's not equal. We are not playing on equal footing. If it was equal, and like every other movie and video game and franchise was race-swapping the same way, one time is a black on white, one time is a white on black, then I would be equally upset. But this is not the reality we inhabit now. Precisely because of progressive messaging, of this idea of representation at the cost of historical accuracy and respect for historical reality.
Been lackluster in my opinion. I mean, yes, they've all been beautiful women, but for someone to be so striking that armies of men fight over her, I mean, actually, let's face it, Lupita's achieved that level of fighting more than any of the other Helen of Troy.
Yeah, that's the only thing that is historically accurate, the kind of war that Lupita has created, Helen of
Troy actresses ever have. So kudos to her for her incredible method acting. But for me, for a divine woman of this insane level of awe...
I would like to say about Lupita, by the way, yeah, kudos to her, but I can't stand her now. You know, before, I was mostly upset with Nolan. And I want to say this, by the way, to all of the clowns that call me racist because of my complaints for Lupita Nyong'o. At first, I didn't even say anything to her. I was just mad with Nolan because I know, the white guy, because I know why he's doing it. Lupita, whatever. But then I started looking into it. I've got videos dedicated. I'll put links if you want to check them out with all the evidence, so you don't have to believe what I'm saying. You can actually check it. But then Lupita said, it's just a myth, so it's racism. But it's just a myth. It doesn't need accuracy. It doesn't matter. It's a myth for Greece. But then I found a separate interview when she had just finished playing her roles in Wakanda, where she talked about the importance of accuracy, the correct accent, the right armor, the correct things to respect what? Wakanda? So for Wakanda, which is fictional, given with some inspiration with Maasai people and a couple of other tribes, but it's fictional. She talked about the importance of being respectful. She said it was a matter of respect for Africa to be historically accurate all the way down to costumes and accent. That's what she said. But then when it's Greeks, and they disrespect it clearly because she said it's a matter of respect. All of this, links in the description. If you're someone who hates me and comes from, the side of her community that is like, oh, Metatron is a bigot, fine. Click the link in the description. I have all the proof. What are you going to say? I would rather appreciate if you typed, man, I watched the videos. It's true. Complete double standards. I hate Metatron, but he's right. And I am right on this one. So now, I actually have a problem with Lupita. That's the one that I love. All sorts of pita. Spanakopita. Lupita is the one I don't like now. And it's because of what she said, not because of the way she looks or her genes. It's because of what she said.
Inspiring beauty. I would imagine her to be like glowing like Galadriel or
Agreed.
Mr. Burns, something otherworldly looking,
I
and
agree.
not just, pardon my bluntness, a blonde woman that we see star basically in every Hollywood movie. And I've been thinking about
Well, right, okay, but then again, was she described like that? You know? Yeah.
this, obviously. I think I would do something with makeup to try and make her skin look pearlescent, like look like she was made of pearl. And I saw this makeup artist
It's not really the way it's described.
recently give herself like a real avatar look, and she makes her skin look all glittery. And I think that'd be a really cool technique to put on someone to make the woman look like she was made of actual pearl. I think something like that for Helena
Yeah, you think that because you're a woman, a man doesn't need that to fight, send 1,000 ships for war, but I'm not gonna tell you what a man is gonna look for.
Troy, like so she looks mythical, that would be awesome. But this is where I suppose right and left politics divide. This is a generalization, but I think it's not unreasonable for me to say this, but right-wing people do care a lot about preserving, and left-wing
Yes.
people care a lot about expanding.
Sure, expanding being fine, I'll take it. I won't bitch about it. Okay, fine.
So, yeah, I'm a nitpicker, I'll admit it. And though I care a lot about historical accuracy because I find that really
I would have nothing against expansion. The thing that pisses me off from some left-wingers is that they only want to expand into one direction. The example I gave before, and many times, that no one ever gives back to us, it's fine for left-wingers to expand when it's white people that are being race-swapped. Oh, it's fine, it's the actor's skill that matters, but you're not okay expanding for someone who's white and is going to play an Asian or black role. That's my problem. At least there would be, if it was consistent, I could disagree because I do like to preserve. I think there are plenty of things that should be preserved in our history, particularly when, and that's once again, I guess that's a right-wing talking point, but particularly when we feel that European history and culture is under attack. I do like the idea of preserving some things because you see, to me, at least, all progress is change, but not all change is progress. And so depending on how that change is justified, at the moment I see it's not equal, that's when I'm going to point the finger. That's when I'm going to have a problem with it.
fun. And I'm passionate about people knowing about the ancient world. My
Yes.
motivations for talking about the ancient world online and in my studies has always been to make it more accessible to
Yeah.
more people.
Agreed.
And
Good.
I didn't get to learn fancy subjects like ancient history or Latin at school. And also, I'm really dyslexic. I never thought I'd get to the point where I'm studying Latin at university or doing a PhD in classics. So I love it when I can encourage more people to look past the ivory towers and challenge themselves to step into a field that has been notoriously exclusive and sort of screams, this place does not welcome people like me. I care about broadening access to classics.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I agree with that 100%.
And those goals sometimes outweigh strict visual historical fidelity. This is obviously where we disagree, but this is my perspective.
Would it be the same perspective if, in order to give access to African history, we race swap it with blonde guys with blue eyes? I'll wait for that.
If more young black people suddenly want to see a film about a classical text because they were intrigued to see a black woman in the film on the posters and everything, and that is film
No, absolutely no. That's the worst way to approach it. So unless someone looks like me, I'm not intrigued? How? How is that? Think about it. Let's reuse the exact same words. More young white men, white people are intrigued about the poster of a African civilization because they see white actors being cast. Would you be okay with that sentence? No, you'd call it, the Jews will not replace us. You call it Nazi, well, not you. But I'm saying plenty of people will think, why? Well, because it's weird. I grew up in the 80s, and one thing about people in the 80s and the 90s, particularly kids, is that children have the power of imagination. And it's not limiting. If you like the idea of expansion, then how about I look at someone like Blade, the vampire hunter, as a 13-year-old Sicilian boy, and I think, he's so awesome, I'm totally him. I'm him. I don't need him to be white, to be awesome, to feel intrigued, to think that he is a hero, and I want to be like him. It is very limiting, however, particularly if we use this with children, to tell someone unless they look exactly like you, it's not you. In a way, I find that less welcoming. I find that less welcoming. And we've always done that. How many of us grew up watching samurai movies? Do you think anyone ever cared, any white person or black, when they look at the cool Japanese samurai, oh, but he's not black, or he's not white like me, he's not blonde. Who cares? He's awesome. We don't need exact racial matching one-to-one in order to be intrigued or interested in history. If you need race swapping in order to be interested into something that is objectively incredible, that is a very close-minded approach. I studied years of ancient Japanese texts because of my degree. Do you think I ever cared that none of those words were written by a white man? You think you're expanding, but you're limiting. The problem with this worldview is that on the surface, it sounds inclusive and open-minded, but the reality is that it's rooted in a very dangerous state of mind, which is, if you don't look like me, you're not me. That is xenophobic. That's my TED Talk.
They may not have thought they'd be interested in or didn't think was for them, and then they go and see it, and then from that they read more about the ancient world, or they read the Odyssey and they may go on to study it in classics. That is a bigger net positive to me.
How is it a net positive? They needed it to be race swapped in order to do that? Well, we are the racists in all this, right? Right-leaning? We are the racist? I'm not calling you racist, I know you're not. But the thought, these hypothetical black men that can only be interested if you get rid of the whites are racists. It's a racist thought. If I'm gonna read a text of the heart of Africa, do I need them to swap everything into white actors to be interested? Wouldn't that make me racist? Oh wow, those myths are really interesting, but wait, do I need to look at black people in order to watch the movie? I'm not interested then. I don't want to read it. But when you put the white guy, then I'm going to read it. I mean, come on, I'm using Yeah, it's not a net positive. It's not a net positive.
Than anything else. Why would you not want more people to be interested in this beautiful, incredible culture and literature?
I do! We just don't need to race swap to achieve that. In fact, you know what we need to do? To have more black youth be interested? We need to tell them white people don't hate you. It's just a bunch of crazies that are actually racist, but the average white person has nothing against you. So don't worry about it. I know they told you that all white men and women are racist, but it's not true. Lots of us have zero problems with you. So come, read our history, our mythology, be part of it. Nobody has anything against you. By this very logic, you're still trying to, remove the white people, You don't want to, because they don't.
And text. I know I would love to see even more people sign up for the classics department, particularly in a world where our departments are closing down and arts funding is being completely pulled.
Sure.
And I acknowledge people seem to have fears that their culture is being misrepresented or even destroyed. Now, forgive me, perhaps I am too optimistic, but I don't believe that you can destroy the legacy and culture of ancient Greece and Rome with a single film.
Obviously. The problem is not a single film, though. Have you seen what they have done? Like removing the word Anglo-Saxon from the curriculum in British universities. I've got a couple of videos on that. Have you seen all the trigger warning that they are placing now in ancient literature, specifically the Greek one, because apparently it's offensive? It's not one movie, so I would obviously agree with you. A single movie is not going to do it right, but we've been fighting this for a decade. Me, personally. People have been fighting it for decades. One would say we might even find the roots of all of this in Marxism, but I don't want to go too political on this in this video. It's not one movie. Too much of academia hates. I mean, we've been told the math is racist. It's,
The texts have existed for thousands of years. No one is going to burn the originals or deny the reality that Helen of Troy in the original text was a white woman with blonde hair.
Yeah, well, no one is going to burn the books. I'm sure they said that before the Nazis got into power. And when it comes to no one is going to deny that Helen of Troy could be black, you haven't watched the episode from The View. Let me play it for you.
And so I covered this. So people that are saying that Helen of Troy could not possibly be played by a black woman don't know history.
But what is it?
Wanna bet? So according to Sunny, Those are all lefties, by the way. You're an ignorant and you don't know history. You. There is that.
The literature and history of these cultures have been loved and studied for centuries, and if anything, their preservation and the preservation of their histories and cultures as legitimate subjects of study and investment demands more people engage with them through academic research, tourism, book sales, document.
Yeah, academic research, tourism, books, exactly. Not race swap, though. We don't need that to attract the racists who hate whites, okay? They can stay out of it. If they have a problem with, but I don't want to see white skin, though. If that's what they're thinking, then I'd rather they stay out and we get people who are instead not racist, you know?
Etc. And to do that, we need to talk to more people, not
cool.
just the same kind of people over.
That's fine.
And over again.
Great.
Now, do I think Nolan's casting choice was because he wanted to encourage more people into the ancient world? Honestly, no.
Thank you.
To me, it seems a little bit evident from the Viking ship and Scottish filming locations and the armour that he doesn't really respect the history or the archaeology or culture of ancient Greece as...
Which is why we're pissed. Do remember that I started talking about this a while ago. And I have complained about the armour, the stuff and everything. It's just at the moment that people like me say, but Helen of Troy, she wasn't black. Then people on your side of politics, not everyone... I've got a lot of subscribers who are left-wing and agree with me, by the way. But I would like to say that usually people on the left of politics will disregard the fact that I've been complaining about the fucking rivets. No, the metal alloy used for said rivets on the rim of the shield. Forget about that and say the only reason is because you don't want to see black people on screen. And there you go with a straw man. So there's that.
Many of us would. I think he cast her possibly to make a statement about Western beauty standards, to use his position as a white man in Hollywood to do what no man has ever been brave. And
stunning and brave, come on, it's a combo. You don't say brave without stunning. Huh? And bend the knee.
Enough or non-racist enough to do and cast a black woman as the pinnacle figure of beauty in a Western canon, one which is steeped in centuries of white supremacy and elitism, and that's not deniable. It's true.
Right, but here's the thing, though. Fine. I mean, not fine, he's a clown, but I would like to say, white supremacy, bad, okay. What about black supremacy? Here's my other question. With me, I have no filters. No filters. I say whatever I want. Feel free to skip this one if you don't want to address it. I'm fine. No, you don't have. If you don't feel comfortable addressing something, it's fine. But I'm going to ask it. People on your side of politics complain about white supremacy all the time, but black supremacy is a thing too. I can point you to a couple of channels that will make your skin crawl. All about the genetic superiority and the inferiority of white people and white men. Yeah, they exist too. It's a thing. It's a thing.
White people that are infected with whiteness, stop being racist.
White people that are infected with whiteness. Imagine saying that about any other race. Yet white people are the racist ones, not the black Americans that are espousing these values and ideas. Let's truly try to work that through our brains. Who sounds more racist here? Him or the average white person here in the United States of America? The answer is him.
Use your black power, your black mysticism, your African spirituality, and your physiological superiority to build this country.
Black power, black mysticism, and physiological superiority. Where have I heard things like that before? Right, Nazi Germany, with the Aryan race. You guys are black supremacists. If you believe in this, you are a black supremacist. Yet we're getting told over and over that white supremacy is the real issue, that white people are infected with whiteness, that they have an inherent racism that they simply can't get rid of no matter what they do when they're raising their kids to be racist, all while you're able to say this on a very prominent black podcast to your black listeners.
If you thought that was a lot, it was a mild one. I am aware of channels that are fully monetized that take this and multiply it 50 times. I'm not gonna give them the shout out. I will not put black supremacist racists on a map. Not on my platform. You can tell me all you want, it's a response to white supremacy, fine, but two wrongs don't make a right. How about no supremacy? How about we're all human beings? And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I bring it up every time someone complains about white supremacy, because to be honest, that's all academia complains these days. And then they deny that any sort of opposite, racism even exists. I mean, I have a whole dedicated video, deeply researched video, by the way, where I address this idea of you can't be racist towards white people, which is the next thing I'm going to ask you. White supremacy is bad because they're racist towards black and non-white and POC fine. Is black supremacy also bad? Can you be racist towards white people? My answer is yes. The answer of a lot of people in academia these days is no. If it's against white people, it's not racist because it's not systemic, they say, effectively utilizing semantic shift to change the core meaning of a word we've been using, racist, that we've been using for a very long time.
Do I blame him for that? No. But I do honestly think it's a little bit lazy and an outdated way of demonstrating one's progressiveness. It would be far more interesting to me, honestly, if film directors like Nolan actually made films centering black stories. And I'm afraid I've never seen how...
You know what? That's what I've been saying. I made 2 videos on the black queens in history. I made them. I got them. That's what a lot of people on the right say. Look at the comments. Even in my comment section, so many people say, and centrists at this point, but so many people say, if you instead of race swapping white people, why don't you tell us black stories? You know, when I said this the first time 8 years ago, I never changed my position. But the problem is that people engage with strawmen arguments. They say, no, he says this, but in reality, he just doesn't want to see black people on screen. How do you even engage with someone like this intellectually? Not her, obviously. But that's the problem. That's why people are so pissed off to a point that now they're starting to be less diplomatic, because we've been saying this very line for years. And every time, it's the truth, every time we are faced from progressive people, so progressive, wow, we are faced with the same usual accusation. Oh, you don't actually mean it. What you mean is that you hate black people. Up to a certain extent, enough is enough. This is why, at this point, I don't even care if people call me racist. Call me racist, I don't give a fuck. I'm still gonna complain about it, and then I'm gonna troll and monetize it.
I'm not really into the film world, so she could be incredibly talented. And in my head, if he wanted Lupita because he just loved her acting, Helen seems like, again, a bit of a lazy choice to me. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's different because of the whole Clytemnestra part of the storyline. That could be really interesting. But for me, my personal opinion, it would have been more impactful from a literary and film theory perspective to have her as Penelope.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you. You're really going back to that. The reason, I mean no disrespect, I'm sure that if we don't speak about these things, we could have a lovely time. Me, you, my wife, and your fiance, we could have a wonderful dinner. We could go have English breakfast and have a great time with our mutual passion for the classics and whatnot, okay? But when you do address these topics, you don't follow logics. Like, it's illogical. You just said, Helen is not historically accurate. It's wrong. They should have cast Greek people. And then you say this. She was Greek. Penelope was as Greek as Helen. What are we even doing here? There's no difference. You're going back to it. You go back to it. You justify it only when it's this. You said you have a problem with people with white skin. You just demonstrated that my line of attack was correct. You only have a problem with white skin. She's white. But when you're okay with... So my original line was right. You didn't prove me wrong. You just reiterated the same thing. You said, no, it's okay. No, I have a problem with the entire cast because I wanted them to be Greek. But I did complain about people of English or Irish descent because they're not Mediterranean, but I'm okay with a black woman playing Penelope who is equally Greek. What are we even doing? Like, I'm sure you can see the lack of logics in this.
In terms of visualness, because we have a black woman in stark contrast to the white Helen of Troy, which visually signifies the literary history of them being polarities.
Not from a Homeric standpoint, would it?
Loyal wife, the perfect wife at home versus the stray, disobedient wife who leaves home. That has been talked about for centuries. It's such as...
So the good wife is the black one and the bad wife is the white one.
Iconic contrast. It would have worked more there. And also my comments on the white actors not being tanned enough, I think still stands. I don't think that makes...
You see, she sees... How does she not see it? How does her audience leave comments under me and say, Lady of the Library destroyed him? Okay, on Reddit, then explain this, because she's still complains about the lack of tan for the white skin. That's inappropriate, but it's fine to cast a black woman to play Penelope, who was Greek. That guy, it's, I mean, GG well played. I don't know what to say to this at this point. You just a double standard. You demonstrated. My line of attack was that you have a double standard and two-tier justice, right? You just demonstrated it again. You do. You do. At least for me, it's don't swap anyone. Black, white, green, blue. Don't swap it. But so I was right. I don't know what else to say. Reddit can cry all they want. I was right. She just proved it. Double standards. So at this point, guys, they hate me. At least admit it. Admit it. You only have a problem with white people playing less white people, I guess, in this case. White people playing black roles. In fact, in this case, two white people playing a little less white people. You have a problem with that. It's atrocious. But it's fine when it's a black woman playing a Greek. And here we are. Just admit it at this point. Holy moly.
Hypocritical.
So she's going again into the, white skin. I would like to underline, though, Mediterraneans are white. We do tan, but when you spend 2 nights at home, the tan goes away. 3 nights at home, the tan goes away.
Metatron talked about his own paleness, and other commenters have also pointed out that their family are Greek and Italian and they're really white, and that's fine and dandy.
Yeah.
But you guys are all modern people who spend your days mostly inside, or if you're outside, in sheltered forms of transportation like a car or a bus or a train. And most of you do jobs that require you to be indoors as well. Like, none of you are Bronze Age Greeks who spend most of their time outside and have the luxury of spending 3 days inside for your
Yeah, no, and that's a good point, but I did agree with this. I did say that, in fact, with someone like Telemachus, I could agree, because at the end of the day, literary, and she knows this, as a literary device, the Greeks did say that if you are a young, strong man and a warrior, your skin will be tanned. Why? Well, precisely for what she said. You're outside, you're training, you're doing heavy lifting jobs, maybe you're working on a ship. Obviously, yeah, that's fine. They're still white, but fine, it's okay. However, the women, particularly of upper class in Greece, would all be white, very pale, in fact. And that is also a characteristic with some royalty, so it kind of depends. And there are some jobs that require you to stay inside, so once again, kind of depends who we are talking about, which is why I said I agree with someone like Telemachus. So gave examples. When it comes to, depends on the scene, then we have to see case by case, because if you've been imprisoned, yeah, your skin is going to be pretty pale. And in fact, in the very text, when Athena restores Odysseus' youth, he goes from having a very pale skin, because he's an old man now, so that's another thing. Old man, he's an old man, his beard is white, he's got a pale skin, but it becomes tan because she's restoring a youthful tan. That's,
tan to fade like Metatron, because their whole lives are of spending 3 days inside for your tan to fade like Metatron, because their whole lives are revolved around working 7 days a week, most often outdoors in manual labour, collecting things like food and water and harvesting and hunting and herding sheep and collecting wood and farming, or travelling long distances by foot or horseback. And obviously their homes were primarily for sleeping in, and they were really dark to keep them cool, and as such, during daytime it made more sense for them to work outside for things, because it had more light and they had more space for tasks like weaving and textile work and
weaving, textile work, but like scribes would be indoor, historians might stay indoor, chefs and cooks could stay indoor. Again, it depends.
Cooking and building and mending. It's not the fact that they were white actors, it's the fact they were bloody non-Mediterranean looking pale-ass people.
Pale-ass people, the black woman. This argument, while interesting, I'm agreeing with something, but it collapses the split second, then we can reconnect it to you having zero problem with a black actress play Penelope. Then what are we going to say about that? Because I can tell you this much, it doesn't matter how much time you spend outside, if you're European, like me, you're never going to transform into a black African. Can we agree with that biological fact?
With obviously the exception of Penelope, she's inside, she's a royal, yeah, we can get that, but also...
Yeah, but you said she could be black!
Women did weave outdoors a lot of the time too, because of lighting, there's that.
What you're demonstrating, like, I'm not trying to attack you, okay? I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but I'm giving you an honest critique here. You can prove me wrong anytime. Complain the same way, about Lupita Nyong'o as you have about the white skin of the actors, then I'll be like, I'll take it back, guys. She did it. She did say that that was not, but she can't do it because she'll be eaten alive. Lady of the Library. So you see, she did say it's not historical, but she couldn't do it. She went back to double standards, just like I said. Let's see what else she's going to say now. My question for you, since you won't say it yourself, what is your opinion on the casting of a black woman, Lupita Nyong'o, for Helen of Troy / Helen of Sparta? What do you think of that casting choice? Do you think that that's an appropriate casting?
So I'm going to be honest here. I have issues with the word choice, appropriate, because...
But you used it. You said it was not appropriate to cast two white people. So why is it a problem with a black woman?
I don't know what you mean by that.
I mean that it doesn't reflect the reality of the ethnic makeup of the people that she's representing.
Appropriate and historically accurate are not the same. So if you ask me, is a black Helen of Troy historically accurate? I'd say no.
Excellent.
Appropriate? I wouldn't want to assert any ill will of that choice of terminology.
Okay, so is it appropriate to cast very white, Irish-looking or English-looking or even Nordic-looking actors to play for Mediterranean roles? Is it appropriate? I'm not asking historically accurate. Is it appropriate? You're not going to say, you're going to say it's inappropriate because you complained about Achilles and the rest. So here we are.
But it feels a little bit loaded. To me, Lupita is as appropriate for the role of Helen as all the other non-Greek actors in that film. None of
Then why did you complain about them and not her?
them are appropriate. I don't see her as being any more or less, and
And I explained why that's inconsistent. Black people are less like us. Or we are less like them, if you want. If with this statement makes you think, oh, it sounds like the far right, okay, fine. Then we are less like them. So I don't want me to be cast for one of them and disrespect African history and people.
pretty sure I've raised my reasons as to why, as I posed the question earlier about if she were Greek but black, would there be an issue? I care about whether the cast as a collective evokes the Mediterranean world of the story, but I also weigh other values such as artistic merit, honouring the original text, and who gets invited into these conversations.
Let me guess, do you also value the skill? Because if you do, I don't know why then you complain about the too pale skin of the individuals. Because, I mean, they're excellent actors. So there's that. Excellent actors.
Like I said already, I care about broadening access to the classics, and those goals sometimes outweigh strict visual historical fidelity for me. And to be clear, I'm not claiming that Bronze Age Greeks were ethnically diverse in the way that modern cities are, nor am I denying that a black actress playing Helen represents a departure from what we would expect historically.
Exactly. Exactly. So why didn't you complain about her?
My point is that historical adaptations involve many competing priorities, though that doesn't mean historical accuracy ceases to matter. See, I'm far more irritated in people treating the ancient world as an amalgamation. You know, anything that looks old, just throw it in there. We have a Viking ship, we have a plume helmet, we have medieval armour in the same film. That really irritates me because it feels incredibly lazy.
No, I agree. That irritates me as well. Not as much as Lupita Nyong'o, though. That one is the thing that irritates me the most. Because I know why they're doing it. They're doing it out of hatred for us. That's why they're doing it. It's hatred. It's not inclusivity. It's exclusivity. It's exclude the whites. Brothers, I speak facts!
I would love to see a film that celebrated the people of Greece and the Mediterranean, to work with archaeologists that work there and ancient historians and the local museums and the universities of the Greek islands, and create something out of that wealth of resources.
Yeah.
So, in a weird way, both Metatron and I would agree that we would love to see the ancient world being showcased accurately. But from what I saw in the comments from his video and those that came over to mine, they seem to fear that deviation will result in the destruction and eradication of the Greek and Mediterranean culture. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but from the nature of the comments, it seems that the only element of this film to be of concern for the eradication of that culture is the casting of black people.
No, it's not the only, but it is definitely the major, because that's all Hollywood has been doing. They continuously delete white voices. And regardless, even if that hadn't happened, okay? Because she might say, no, it's not true, fine, and then I have to send her all the screenshots, whatever. Let's, for a moment, sake of argument, it's the first time this ever happened. Never happened. They never race swapped a white guy with a black one. Never happened. Okay, fine. even in that situation, if you frown upon it, why do you have a problem with a black woman, with black actors swapping white actors? Why do you have a problem with that? Would you have a problem with a white actor swapping for a black historical character? I would. I don't want to see Shaka Zulu being played by a white man. I don't want to see an ancient emperor of China being played by a white man. Would you frown upon that?
Rather than the Viking ships, the Scottish filming location, the inaccurate armour, the monochrome statues.
Yeah, if they swapped, again, I'm going to continue this way. If they swap, I'm going to keep hammering this point. If they swap the ships, the huts, the grass, the workmanship of an African tribal village historical of the kingdom of Meroe, you would stop noticing the split second that they cast a blonde, Germanic-looking man to play, or woman to play, a historic, a person of interest, of history, of that specific black culture. You wouldn't even look at the grass anymore. You wouldn't be like, so I don't know, yeah, they did cast white Europeans and basically deleted all of the black real people, but come on, it's the same thing as the ship. They also, why do you care more about that than you care about the huts? It's inconsistent. You know you would flip every table in existence if right now Hollywood, never gonna happen, but if right now Hollywood cast an all blonde and redhead actor group to play a real historical kingdom of Africa, you wouldn't even care about but the shield is inconsistent, and that irritates me as much as the deletion of all the people. Be consistent is all I say. Be consistent.
The inaccurate clothing, the American accents. Those latter details, I believe, are more destructive to the Mediterranean.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Culture and history than two actresses, unless you perceive the race of the peoples to be the primary core of the heart of what makes the ancient world so fascinating.
No, that's kind of a condescending straw man. And in fact, this is loaded. So in other words, you're saying, oh, so what you really find fascinating is race? No, if anything, what I find fascinating, and all of us, they complain about this in the comments, and by the way, a lot of these people are Greeks, so I would say, what about the Greeks, right? Because me and you, we can talk about this and debate all we want, but what do the Greeks think? The Greeks fucking hate it, that they race swapped their people. They matter. We can go lucubration all you want, the Greeks still fucking hate it. The Greeks are with me on this, as you could see in the comments. You can explain to them why, oh, but it's the race, whatever. But it's not. No, what's fascinating is everything else. Fascination doesn't come from race. No one ever said this, and I don't know why you're building that. Well, I know why you're doing it, because this way you're undermining our argument. You're making it sound like all you care about is race. No, we are annoyed by the race swap. It's not that we are fascinated by the original race. No, I'm fascinated by the literature. I'm fascinated by everything. Obviously, I don't even need to create a list to defeat the point. We are annoyed by it because they are fixed. That's all Hollywood is doing. So in other words, if Hollywood for the last 20 years have been race swapping systematically white people constantly in video games, look at Aragon, magic, even fantasy, history, literature, mythology, all the deities, everything, constantly race swap, only one direction. And then we are annoyed by it. If it happens for the 73rd time, if you tell us, oh, so all you find fascinating is race, you're victim blaming. That's what that is. They caused this. Our reaction to it is not our fault. We are reacting with anger because they keep doing it, and it's unjust because they would never dream to race swap an Asian, an African, a Native American. Could you imagine, like Native American tribes, and they play German act, French men. I want to see Native Americans. I want to see American Indians played in the role. So, unfortunately, this is one of the weakest arguments that you brought up today, but it is also one of the most commonly used in not only left-wing discourse around the discussion of race in the media, but in left-wing academics. Very typical. And it's a straw man. It's a mischaracterization.
I'm a nerd, and I love the ancient world, and I would love to see its archaeology and history and art and architecture and all the things I find really cool to be brought to life in front of me. Like, they've cracked out of the glass cases in a museum, and they are living again for the first time in thousands of years.
Wonderful.
And as such, I want more people to be interested in it and learn about it, so it continues to be preserved and researched as a subject. So if the casting choice helps people who might otherwise feel disconnected from the ancient world or not be exposed to it in their schools or through museums that they don't have access to, and they realise through this film that these stories also belong to them and can speak to them, then I see benefit.
It's not a benefit unless you could. So the only way to get white people interested in African and Asian history is to race swap. When you actually say it out loud, worded in the way that is more representative of what she's actually saying, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? When you do it the other way around.
She's not historically accurate. None of them are. But I care about, like, intricate details that actually look like they've lived the life there. You know, like, the being that pale just throws me out as a collective choice. Like, it's just...
Okay, and then being that black? It doesn't belong to that area. Otherwise, we would all be black. Follows reason, right? Why are you only annoyed by white? Because you're a left-winger. That's why. Gosh, not all left-wingers think this way, but come on. Are you going to deny it at this point? She's not. She's annoyed because if your skin is too pale, you don't belong. You're clearly natural. You wouldn't be that pale. Okay, you also naturally wouldn't be that black.
Irritating as the pristine looking armour, it really ticks me off because they've been probably wearing that for 20 years and that armour's been through 10 years of war. Really, come on.
Well, this actually shows a little ignorance, if I may, as someone who has dedicated his life to historical reenactment, and I have studied. I mean, my channel used to be entirely about armour. Armour was pristine in all times, precisely because it was looked after. If it was a Roman legionary, the sources tell us that they polished that shit constantly because it's maintenance, and if you let it rust and get half destroyed without repairing it and getting dirty, you would be punished by your centurions, because it would be the same as a modern military man. Please let me know if there is any veterans. Thank you for your service in the comments. Can you imagine a modern military man who doesn't look after their equipment, and then the firearm doesn't work? So looking out for your equipment and the pristine conditions of it, it was necessary even for the most common legionary soldier. How much more for generals? I mean, medieval knights didn't polish it and repair it because they had servants to do it, squires and pages, but the armor looked pristine, perfect. The upper mounted nobility. Someone like Agamemnon, yeah, it should be pristine. Someone like, absolutely. That's how it is. If you know anything about ancient military history, that is one thing that almost all cultures share. Samurai armor, do you think they let it rot? If a leather strap breaks, you repair it. Otherwise, the armor could be compromised because of the overlapping of the plates. That's how it works, whether it be lamellar armor, scale, whether it be plate armor, segmented armor. Mail, if some of the rings break, someone can stab you through it. Like, armor needs to be constantly repaired. So unless it's a situation where you're filming a scene when they are running away after a rout because they lost a battle, they're all bloody, and the armor is kind of broken because of it, that's fine. But if they survive that, it's all repaired. That's how it is. And if it's a complicated piece of armor of a knight, they swap it. They had multiple sets in their kits. They swap it. The armlet broke, give me the salad. It's just how it is. I'm not going to hold it against you. You're probably not as passionate about armor, so that's okay, but just wanted to underline that for her audience at this point, if they hear this and they're like, yeah, the armor should look like shit, but be dirty and rusty, and no, absolutely not. Even if you make a dedicated video, you won't. Or if you will say, I don't really like the casting of Lupita Nyong'o for this role because of personality, the message, the idea, the linguistic stratification of it. It's like, I don't know what it is. At least say it. Say you have no problems with race swapping when it's black on white. I mean, I demonstrated this. I forgot to put myself top right. But I mean, instead of looking at me, you looked at me. It looked like I was using mental projection. But I mean, I proved it at this point. You do have a problem with this white and black. At least say it. If that's your position, say it. So then we can agree to disagree. It will be a very difficult position to defend if we are talking equality of treatment, But at least it's a sincere position. Because this idea that you guys, and when I say you guys, I mean left-wing people, this thing that you have to pretend it's not happening, or you have to be like, oh, I don't even see it, and stuff like that. I'm not trying to strawman her, but she did not address it once. In 2 videos, she complained about the white skin. She didn't say a word about a black casting, though.
But what do I think about race swapping in general?
She still hasn't, by the way, so I hope she does now, because she did say once again 15 times that, oh, their skin is too pale, but she said black African is fine for Penelope. She said that the environment wouldn't make your skin that pale, but she did not say that the environment would not make your skin that black. What are you saying it now?
Metatron says that I never care when race swapping occurs when it's a white person's role being swapped in for a black actor or a person of colour, and I will complain when a person of colour's role is swapped out and played by a white person. And believe it or not, that's not entirely true. It's case-by-case basis. So let's firstly talk about race swapping, because to me at this point in our film history, it comes across as more performative than sincere. It's like Hollywood
I don't think he ever was sincere with Hollywood. Ever.
Has decided that people of colour can be on screen, but within very narrow constraints. You know, they still need to fit into white person story.
True, which is disrespectful to black people. It says you need white charity when it comes to literature and history, which is disgusting. I think we can agree with this. We can agree at this point. I think we're gonna set aside our political differences, and we can agree on this one. Because I see that's where you're going, and I appreciate it. Finally, someone saying it. Why do black people need white charity for history? Why can you not cast them in their real, original roles, and instead you gotta race swap everything? Make the Afrocentrists happy.
And they tend to always be a peripheral.
Yep.
To me, if directors and screenwriters cared about diversity sincerely, they should be focusing on bringing more diverse stories and narratives to mainstream media.
True!
To celebrate and promote them. And this has a proven track record of success. Take Sinners, take Moonlight. But when race swapping directors get to pat themselves on the back because they're being inclusionary, but they're avoiding...
You do understand you sound like a right-winger now, because that's what we say. Apart from the extreme, crazy, actual racists that you have within the right, I get it. Nobody cares about those. But that's what a lot of conservatives say. And in fact, a lot of people that complain about this and don't even think themselves of right-wingers, but then they get pushed into alt-right, far-right. That's what a lot of us have been saying. If you want to cast a black actor, tell a black story. How are we the racists? We're agreeing. We're agreeing. Wonderful.
Having to have the difficult work of actually confronting and talking about race, because they kind of don't want to. Like having a black Anne Boleyn is amazing insofar as that it possibly inspires young black people.
It's not amazing. Oh, she's going back to that. Oh my God. I wish you stopped at that point, because it's defunct. It's defunct. It doesn't work. If that's what they need, they're racist. I don't appreciate them. And we already proved it. Yes.
To watch that show and may find a love of Tudor history.
It's not amazing. It's a lie. How about the truth? And you wouldn't think, would you? I will hammer this down. Do you think it would be amazing to cast a blonde guy for Shaka Zulu? Because it would get a lot of white Nazis to actually watch the movie if you don't put a black man on screen. Is that amazing? Is it?
Or history in general. That's awesome. But ignoring the actress's race is actually a really easy thing to do, because most of the time society ignores her race anyway. They don't want to talk about it. It makes them uncomfortable because they have to have difficult conversations with themselves. People ignore her race entirely until she's cast in a film where she would be otherwise a white person, and then suddenly everyone's very passionate about British history and how the monarchs are presented, because apparently their children will learn that Anne Boleyn was a black person, and that's wrong.
Well, yeah, actually, yes. There are. Have you ever seen the Afrocentrists and what they claim? They do say the original Japanese were black. Not every Afrocentrist thinks this, I don't care. Plenty of people say that. Absolutely. Ancient Egyptians were all black. Carthaginians were all black. I've debunked all of this. It's on my channel. Carthaginians were all black. Original Romans were black. The Greeks were black. Helen of Troy was black, Sunny on The View. The original Japanese were black. China was initially black. The original Scandinavians were black. Anglo-Saxons were black. That's exactly what those people are thinking. But it's a lie. It cannot work because you're not being consistent. If we race swap a black person with a white character, you're not going to say the same thing. You're not going to be like, oh, it's awesome, it's great, because it can get white people interested, and that it's not like they're going to think that original Africans were not black.
because apparently their children are too dim and they can't work it out for themselves or read a book that Anne Boleyn wasn't black, and their parents are also too lazy to educate their children otherwise. It's ruthless, but
Do the same thing, but do it with white, with black. You'll never agree to it.
sorry, but if you are relying on popular media to educate your children or yourself, then you're sort of walking into a trap of being willfully miseducated.
They're pushing that stuff in academia. They say white people are not native of anything, of anywhere.
Directors and scriptwriters aren't researchers at the end of the day. They are entertainers. Would
Okay, what do you think of the documentary on Cleopatra? Because they called it a documentary.
you read a history book on Henry VIII that was written by Nolan, or would you read a history book on Henry VIII written by an academic who's got a doctorate in it and taught it at a university for 20?
With current day academia, neither.
Exactly. And then secondly, there are times when race swapping in a person of colour into a white person's role has problematic implications. So take Emerald Fennell's recent adaptation of Wuthering Heights. So she completely ignores Heathcliff as a person of colour. That adds so much depth to the story. It's a very important reason. She casts him as a white man.
That's why it is so detrimental to my blood pressure to discuss these kind of topics with lefties. Some leftists, some. It's because she doesn't. It's the lack of self-awareness. Sister, my sister in Christ, you are cringing about white on black swapping, just like I predicted. I was prophetic.
It's completely missing the point of the story. She makes an interesting film still, but then I think she went in potentially a bit of a panic and she thought, oh my god, my entire cast will be white. So she cast Edgar Linton and Nellie as people of colour, which would be fine if they weren't seen as the people trying to ruin Cathy and Heathcliff's chances of being together, like the main protagonists. Don't get me wrong, I hate Cathy and Heathcliff, but these are technically people who are in the way of the true romance for people who romanticise them. So Nellie is a little bit of the snoop whose resentment of Cathy results in Heathcliff running away, and Linton obviously then becomes Heathcliff's obstacle to Cathy. And don't get me wrong, I love Linton. He's a babe, he's a darling, he's such a lovely character, but making the primary enemies of the white people's true love story a people of colour is of itself potentially problematic.
Would the opposite be problematic? If the bad people are the white guys and the true love is the black couple? Man, this is going to take a while to edit. This is going to be a bitch to edit.
And I know Metatron gave this creator, because they thought it was Asmongold, the benefit of the doubt. And I
because Asmongold is based.
agree that in Metatron's interpretation of what this person could have said is a possible way of it being perceived, in the sense that Metatron says how all translations are a distortion of a retelling of the original text, which is, we'll get into that, but I completely agree with him.
Splendid.
And therefore he defends this person's sentiment by saying Wilson's translation can be called a retelling or a reimagining because Metatron, as a linguist and a translator, understands that nuance. But forgive me for being blunt here when I say that I'm 99% sure that the original person was not talking about Wilson's translation as being a retelling with a deep understanding of the complexities of translation.
And that may well be the case, but if you don't tell me who the original person was, we will never know, will we? Because, I mean, at this point, who was it? Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin? Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? So I can't really address this. Like, you know who you're talking about. I haven't got a clue at this point because everybody's got a different theory. Could be a reptilian for all I know. If it was a reptilian, though, maybe.
We're just regurgitating this idea that Wilson had changed the entire story of the Odyssey, claiming that Wilson had destroyed the epic. She demeaned Odysseus as a hero because she's a man-hating feminist.
But she was a feminist, though, very politically driven. I'll get back to it.
And that doesn't happen in her translation of the Odyssey. But we'll get into translation later.
But do you also call out people who are blinded by their absolute hatred of right-wing politics that they spew misinformation? That's my question. But then again, for years, I debunked left, right, left, left, right, left, so much that I looked like a complete lunatic. They always deny this, by the way, on Reddit. They're like, it's not true, I don't see them, I don't see the videos, even though I show them on fucking screen. I show them on the screen. They still deny. I have literally seen one of my detractors making a video, and you can see the screenshot where you see all of the videos, the ones that upset my fellow right-wingers, the ones that upset the left-wingers, the ones that upset the freaking centrist. And he denied it. It's like, no, he never did it. He never did it. Okay. Like, I looked like someone who needed to talk to a psychologist, if not a psychiatrist at this point. On a Tuesday, I was meta woke. On a Thursday, I was the meta chart. That's me.
Yes, I do. I just did it a few weeks ago in a video
Splendid.
where I critiqued a left-wing archaeologist's approach to critiquing a right-wing neo-pagan influencer online.
Okay.
Now, people criticise me for being far too hard on the archaeologist and for being too forgiving of the neo-pagan,
I'll have to watch that video then. I'm probably going to like it.
when I didn't see myself as forgiving or nice to her at all in the slightest. I just said things as they were. But my critique was that neo-Nazi, Nazi, alt-right, right-wing and far-right are all distinctive words with very specific criteria.
Yes, they are. For instance, I am center-right, which in a lot of left-wing circles is known as ultra-mega-far-right, alt-right, neo-Nazi, bigot, fascist.
And using them interchangeably on the left, just because it sounds, punchy when doing a video, isn't the smartest thing to do.
I appreciate. I'm gonna go check to see if any of your subscribers call me any of those things.
Especially when you pick one of those terms and then use that term to go after someone's income. You are looking for a possible defamation lawsuit when you do that. And if you have...
I mean, I doubt that you could use any defamation lawsuit when it comes to a word like fascist or alt-right. I think that's how it works with defamation cases. They're kind of difficult with that kind of stuff. But I agree with the sentiment. I agree with, it's nonsense, but it's cancel culture is what it is. We've been complaining about it for like 2 decades.
Haven't got the evidence to back up why you labelled someone a neo-Nazi specifically and not any of the other labels, a lawyer will have a field day with you.
That is, oh my gosh, of course she uses BCE. Good idea, June, part 7 BC. I'm telling you. That's actually a very good one. I love the Photoshop here. It did a fantastic job. Very good job. You know what they should have done? If we're going to talk about Photoshopping, just get, and she will appreciate, I think, she probably hates me for everything else I said, but she might appreciate this one. They should have made the sea wine dark in color. Give it a little purple. That's, of course, a reference to the literature. And for someone who was brought up in a Mediterranean island, it does look like that sometimes. It actually looks like wine.
Sorry,
I remember that one when I was 10. I went to the beach with my parents. The sea looked like wine, and my dad even joked about it because he loves wine. And he's like, I'm going to drink the whole sea. And he's from northern Italy. They're insane up there with wine. Anyways.
Sorry, I really had to include the clip of winding you up by using BCE. It made me laugh. Thanks.
Yeah, so I refuse. Like, you will never, as I have said multiple times, and I'm going to reiterate it again, you will never find me dead using BCECE. Now, given she has the freedom to say BCECE all she wants, and I respect that freedom, at the same time, though, whenever I see it written, my new policy these days is that I refuse to read it. So you can write BCE, I will still read it BC. You know why? Because I strongly believe that, considering the fact that even when you use Common Era CE, the point of reference is still the birth of Jesus, isn't it? So it is logical, in my opinion, to think that at the end of the day, the C in Common identifies as Christ, Christ's era, or Christian era. Thus, CE identifies as AD, so I refuse to dead name it. So BC AD all the way, baby!
Also, thank you for complimenting my Photoshop. I was proud of that poster.
That was cool.
Thank you for that. And also, hell yes to a wine dark sea.
I know.
That would be bloody awesome.
Amazing.
I've unfortunately never got to see it in real life, not at a certain time, but hell yes. If you're going to make an Odyssey that's mythical, including gods and 3D printed armor, then why not? Why not capture the famed wine dark sea?
Not to mention that would be less fantasy because, as I explained, it does exist. You just have to go to the beach at dusk.
Love that idea. And don't think so poorly of yourself, Metatron. I haven't hated everything you said in this video.
Wow.
I'm probably going to irritate the hell out of you. And I'm probably going to make you regret making this video in the first place.
Now you have no idea the kind of scumbags that I have to deal with all the time. This is nothing. This is like nothing in comparison. My blood pressure hasn't even increased. Can you imagine that? Which is a miracle considering the fact that I, as an Italian, I don't have blood. I have diluted pizza sauce. So the boiling point is different. The boiling point, guys.
Purely because you can see I love to talk about this stuff first.
You want to cast a gay man, cast him. Ooh. Don't turn a straight man gay, which is what people do. Yeah. Don't change the facts of history. Don't tell me that the Vikings, not her, but I'm saying the left in general. Yep. Don't tell us that the Vikings were transgender. Nonsense. It's nonsense. What is, in fact, I'm going to ask you this directly. Since you're into the classics, you're into history, I imagine. What do you think of Emperor Elagabalus? Was he transgender? I'm so excited to see this. What's she going to say? What's she going to say, guys? What's she going to say?
No.
Spoken like a true right-winger. I love it.
Did that shock you? Okay, let me make my position known. So, in 2023, the North Hertfordshire Museum in Hitchin changed the pronouns it used in reference to a coin of Elagabalus in its collection to refer to the emperor as a trans woman, using she, her pronouns. Now, this discussion is based on ancient sources discussing their various behaviours. You know, they allegedly dressed as a female sex worker.
Yeah, that is anti-imperial propaganda. They freaking hated him.
They married a male slave and then acted as his wife. They asked to be referred to as a lady rather than a lord, and in one account begged to have a surgical vagina made by a physician. That's all well and dandy. But were these stories true?
Yeah, that's okay. I appreciate this. You see, that's someone who knows the history behind it. Because the people that say, one of us, when it comes to the transgender Emperor Elagabalus, and by the way, the reason why we're not saying Elagabalus, which is the English pronunciation, it's not that it's wrong, but we both know the phonemic vowel length of the name in Latin. It's Elagabalus, with a little retracted S if you really want to be period accurate. We're not saying it wrong, because when I did make the video dedicated to Elagabalus, I got a lot of comments saying it's Elagabalus. I'm like, in English! Anyways, yes, so a lot of the information we get about the emperor is propaganda, because people hated him. And by the way, the people that want to claim him, the transgender activists that want to claim him, are the ones that don't understand history, because on my original video, I actually featured a transgender historian who, guess what, agreed with me. Go watch it. I'll put a link in the description if you don't believe me. It's there. Why? Because this transgender historian knew history. Anyone who understands, even in the slightest, the kind of stuff that Emperor Elagabalus did would never want to be associated with him in any way, shape, or form. We're talking about a disgusting monster that, if it's true, was sacrificing children. So, do you really want to say one of us? Not... I'll tell you more about it, but let her finish.
Elagabalus was a very young emperor who was assassinated at just 18 years old. And the accounts of sexual unconventionality largely originate from rather hostile ancient historians who wanted to win the favour of Elagabalus's successor, Severus Alexander. And to win favour, it would not be, out of the question to portray the young emperor in the worst light possible at the time.
She's absolutely right. Not to mention, one more thing we have to say about Elagabalus and then move forward. Elagabalus was a Syrian of origin. So whenever they talk about the makeup, the fact that he was putting on makeup, yeah, the Romans make fun of him. They're like, what do you think? Do you want to be a woman? Is that what you're putting up with the makeup? But the reality was doing it because he was a priest of Elagabalus, which is the name of the deity that he was worshipping, so it's a nickname. And it was a characteristic of Syrian tradition within ceremonial conventions, which the Romans thought was weird because it was foreign. It's literally in the sources. It's clear as day. So the people, they're like, oh, it's just a transgender woman because makeup. It's a transgender woman because this, because that. They don't understand the context. Appreciate that she does. I do.
As such, we can never truly know what is accurate when reading ancient sources, because we always have to take them very lightly and consider them within a broader context. And I say this as someone whose views have evolved in this area. I've talked to lots of academics in the field, and thanks to this kind of discussion, as a researcher, I practice my ethics, which is that I believe that it is unethical to label historical figures in terms of their pronouns or label them with a certain sexuality.
Right. Well, this is where we're going to disagree. At least you practice what you preach. I don't know if I would say it's unethical from my point of view, but I think it's inappropriate simply because using modern terminology, specifically when it comes to activism, comes with a baggage that is not congruent with the way people lived and saw the world in period. The current ideas when it comes to, what is it called, heteronormative conventions and gender non-conforming and that kind of stuff, and non-binary and transgender, they didn't exist. And even if you want to look at someone, as I have mentioned, in the sources that we know was sleeping around with men and women, it still would not be the same as a modern LGBTQ+ with certain ideas. It's not the same. I personally don't have a problem saying this person was homosexual or this person was likely homosexual. because homosexuality existed, it has always existed. And up to a certain extent, I'm not against the idea of gender dysphoria existing. It's just that, I mean, it wasn't called that way, but the condition probably existed, although, as today, it would have been an extremely small percentage of individuals in history.
And I came to this conclusion after realizing that there is violence inherent in language, so one cannot...
Careful with that statement. There is violence inherent in language is a very dangerous statement, because there are people out there, and they exist. I'm more than happy to show you some cases if you don't believe so, but I think it's wrong to call it violence. We'll have to agree to disagree on this one, because saying that language can be violence, particularly in a situation whereby, well, you're using the wrong pronoun, or you're saying someone is gay and maybe they were not, or you're saying something, I think she's straight. Not that I care really of people's sexuality, but if they were the item of conversation, she is straight and then I'm wrong, that's not violence. It can be disrespectful depending on how you do it. It's rude. It's not violence. Because when you call it violence, then what happens is that the people that are not like you, the people that are insane in the head, they're going to think, well, your words are violence, so my retaliation with real physical violence is appropriate. And this happens. So I strongly disagree with the word usage. Words are violence, particularly in the context of gender and this kind of stuff. I think it's dangerous because when taken to an extreme, it can be used as a layer of justification for real physical violence. That's my take on that.
So one cannot just simply say Alexander the Great was a gay man, nor can they just say Elagabalus was a transgender woman, even if there is evidence to suggest that they were.
I mean, they're dead, you know, so it's not like I'm going to upset them.
Because not only does labelling demean the agency of the person who isn't able to define themselves, in doing so, we place a pattern of gendered behaviours from our contemporary culture onto the past.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I guess the way she worded it, it's still a little bit for me. But in general, yeah, we shouldn't use modern so that's exactly my point. Great. I'm glad we agree on this.
And thus contradict our own arguments against gender expectations.
Right.
So whilst I enjoy interpretations and discussions of possibly how Alexander the Great was possibly a bisexual, it would be unethical to confidently state that he was straight, or he was gay, or he was bi, etc. It is just as unethical to automatically assume heteronormativity as it is to impose other labels on them.
Yeah. Classes of theory of translation, which every linguist has to go through, me included, you know that a translation is never a one-to-one. Now, perhaps I'm misunderstanding what you're trying to say here, so I'll allow for the possibility that maybe I'm strawmanning you, but a translation is never a one-to-one. If you want a one-to-one, you have to read it in the original language. Otherwise, it is going to be a retelling. And there is nothing you can do about that. In fact, if you give the same original text to 10 different translators, they will produce 10 different products. I'm actually curious to see how she's going to respond to this, because it's quite solid. It's just the way translation is, which is why people can have their favorites.
I totally agree with him. Like,
Fantastic.
He's right, particularly regarding translation. Firstly, obviously, I'm not like an actual linguist working with text and translating things. Yes, I did advanced Latin. I'm not a translator.
I'm glad I'm not one anymore, because to me it was an extremely boring job to do. I'm sure there are a lot of translators that love it, not for me. In fact, I preferred doing simultaneous translation, like interpretation live, much better in my opinion. Just translating is boring for me. I don't think I'll ever do it again, but I did do it for some time.
And even then, I still completely agree. Yes, there is no such thing as a one-to-one translation. I didn't mean for it to come across as me saying that, so I'm really sorry. That's badly worded on my part, if that is how it came across. And yes, as you said, it takes 5 words in English to say a single word in ancient Greek. They are not transferable. Also, like he says in his video, and what I was trying to point out and highlight in my video is there is no such thing as a neutral, accurate and unbiased translation. The only way to access the text in an accurate way is to read it in its original language.
Yeah, because we all carry some bias. Now, given some people are more biased than others, particularly if they're politically motivated. But in general, I would, that's good. And believe it or not, I'm going to have to go even deeper than that. And while having access to the original language, considering if you have a high enough level of skill, is the closest you can get, you're still reading it with the mind of someone from this century. So you would also have to go through certain layers that are not linguistic, but they are temporal. And that takes work.
Provided that you can trust your own mind and brain is to read it in its original language. Provided that you can trust your own mind and brain to be unbiased when translating for yourself, which of course isn't possible either. If people didn't have agendas, if people didn't have preferences or personal motives for translating something, no one would translate something that already existed, translated into their primary language.
I agree with that. The only problem I have is when those agendas are political, because politics is a divisive subject by nature. It's just how it is. While literature and, in fact, hobbies are supposed to unite people, even if we have different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, politics. That's one of the reasons why, for instance, I tend to complain a lot about the pushing of certain political agendas into games and movies, because I hate the fact that politics divides. And I would rather politics stayed out of this stuff.
People retranslate the Odyssey into English or French or Greek multiple times because each translator has an agenda to do so. It's not because their country is lacking a translation of the Odyssey in their language. We have an English one.
Good point.
People have agendas. They want to do it again.
Now, if for you, Cynthia, Emily Wilson's translation is the best one, we'll have to see why, but if that's the best one, it's just your personal opinion, that's totally fine by me. I personally don't like it. The only thing I like about it is the fact that she tried to stick to the meter, the poetic meter, up to a certain extent, because it's pentameter versus hexameter. I didn't go into that details. Those details, I just brushed it off quickly, simply because I wanted to see if she was going to talk about that. But yeah, I thought that was nice. We all have to be cognizant of the fact that a translation is a product of manipulation. Yes. You can't leave things one-to-one, particularly when it comes to ancient languages. But to be fair, even modern languages, if I were to translate a text from modern Japanese, a language I speak fluently, I know I would have to make some decisions. And those decisions are going to be the product of my thought process, my ideas. A different interpretation of the same words might be just as valid.
And no, Emily Wilson's translation does not stretch and contort the material in the slightest.
It absolutely does. This is very strange that you say this. No professional translator would agree with this statement. I wonder if she misspoke. I'm sure she's going to qualify it. You do stretch the material. You have to. In fact, now I'm going to say it, her translation stretches it more than others precisely because she tried to stick to the actual original poetic meter. Okay? It is beautiful, the fact that she can maintain a certain rhythm to connect it to the ancient text. But that required manipulation in order to let things stick into different languages. So I do agree with Emily when it comes to that, but so not using terms that weren't present. But at the same time, I don't like what she chose to do with it. Then I'll like a complicated man, go deeper into this. So I agree with the sentiment, but not the execution. However, the poetic meter is really the only thing, in my opinion, that makes her translation shine from a technical standpoint, but it comes at a heavy cost. It comes at a heavy cost. And the reason why it comes at a heavy cost is because ancient Greek is an extremely condensed language. She already agreed with that, where you can take one word and encapsulate 5 in English in order to represent the same meaning.
Correction, I never said Wilson's translation was better, nor did I say it was my favourite.
Okay, that's cool. So we clarified that. What's your favourite, Fagel?
I was defending her against people saying that her translation is utter rubbish and that she hates the Odyssey and that she never even tried and she wanted to destroy the epic because...
But did people say that? Because once again, you'd never shared who this creator was, so I can't double check it.
That's all nonsense to me. She did it differently, and some of her outcomes were really awesome. But she still isn't my favourite translation of the Odyssey. But I would argue that no one is doing a worse or better translation. They're just very different. Though where I disagree slightly with Metatron here is that he says that all translation is a distortion of the original text.
Manipulation.
And therefore, all translations are retellings. That end part I disagree with.
If you want a one-to-one, you have to read it in the original language. Otherwise, it is going to be a retelling.
Because while, yes, he's right, every translation contorts and distorts the original by default because it is manipulated into a language unbefitting of its true form.
Right.
But if we call all translations retellings by default for that very reason, we merge genres and intentions here, and that's where it can get a bit messy, because everything could be grouped into retellings.
I do think that everything should be grouped into retellings, but let's see how she defends this. Maybe a misunderstanding.
So saying Fagel's translation of the Iliad is as much a retelling or reimagining of the Iliad as Madeline Miller's Song of Achilles is.
Oh, of course, that would be nonsense, but it was not my point. This does sound a bit like a straw man, like you're putting words into my mouth. I think it's unintentional, all right, because of the way she is. But yeah, so let's just say that I agree with her on this, because this one on the right is basically a novel romance, romancified version with a lot of fantasy and a lot of additions that were to create the, the Song of Achilles and whatnot, while this one is trying to translate the ancient text. In other words, I understand your point of view, but it's very easy to counter. There are degrees of retelling. There are degrees. If I take a million, the more you diverge from the original text, the more of a retelling it is. Right. So what she's saying is that my point was these will all, because I say that generally speaking, all translations are a product of manipulation, and they could be considered as a retelling. But now your counter argument to that is quite weak, because you're saying, well, then are you saying that these two will be equally a retelling? And the answer is no, obviously not. There are degrees of retelling. Some are closer to the original, and others are completely, like, she took a million liberties. So that's the word. How many liberties are you taking from the text? You could make a comics book, right? That's even more of a retelling. So yeah, there are degrees to it.
Is inaccurate, and thus I would argue it's overtly pedantic to reduce all translations to the realms of retellings and imaginings.
Pedantic is my middle name, though.
Stephen Fry's retelling of the Odyssey and the Iliad are not translations. He's incredibly liberal, he's very leftist in his way, he puts in sassy jokes, feminist scolding, snarky remarks, but to say Wilson, Fagel's and Pope's texts exist in the same realm as Stephen Fry's is inaccurate.
I agree. That was never my point, but great. I agree.
Translators worked with the original text and crafted a text to try and tell it in a different language, but not just so people know the story like Stephen Fry does. They want people to experience Homer's work, albeit through their eyes, and they want people to try and get as close to the text as possible using their skills and understanding of the language. Cool. Honest to God, no wonder our videos are so damn long. We're just two pedants pecking at each other like hens pecking
Absolutely.
a seed on the floor.
Just like any work of translation, Wilson's translations has pros and cons. As we said, one of the pros was the fact that she tried to maintain the original meter, but she still had to change it. So she's not reproducing Homer's meter. That is because it's pentameter versus hexameter. It's exactly what I meant. Meter exactly. She's creating an English equivalent. So the same number of lines as Homer, which is interesting, but not identical. Not only that, but as explained, this was a very demanding choice because Homeric Greek can pack more into a line than English can. Princeton's write-up on Wilson makes this point directly. He says, English often needs more syllables to express the same idea, while Wilson's pentameter line has fewer syllables than Homer's Greek. Of course, I'm not saying that she tried to remove events, full-on scenes, or plot points, but this cost is real and is found at a level of texture, repeated epithets, doubled adjectives, particles, formulaic redundancy, and other descriptive amplifications.
I really enjoyed that you brought this up as a translator, as a linguist, because this is where I believe the misunderstandings of how translations function have come into play, resulting in what I believe is an unfair criticism of Wilson. Because you said it yourself. You say it that Wilson does not change the Odyssey in the way that she changes the storyline. But the comments that inspired my last video were of people accusing Wilson of just that. They were saying that she destroyed the epic, she rechanged the story, she changed Odysseus' reputation, and she didn't understand an ancient Greek epic male and was effectively making him a villain or a weak man, and putting him in a negative light because she's a feminist.
Right, but so half of that is wrong. If that's what they're saying, I don't have the original source material, but if that's what they are saying, then part of that is wrong, but some of it is true, because she did say that, I'll bring up the interview, because, I mean, that's the elephant in the room. There is an interview where she kind of admitted a little bit of that. I don't know if you're aware of that. We'll check it out.
And what I think has happened here is that I think conversations of how Wilson condensed the Odyssey, i.e., cut out and had to remove lots of intricate atmospheric details of the Odyssey.
So you see, she's admitting it now. Do you remember that my original point of attack was that she was saying that she didn't change it in the slightest? But now she said this.
and she didn't understand an ancient Greek epic male and was effectively making him a villain or a weak man and putting him in a negative light because she's a feminist. And then what I think has happened here is that I think conversations of how Wilson condensed the Odyssey, i.e. cut out and had to remove lots of intricate atmospheric details of the Odyssey that gave it its charm and density for...
No disrespect, but this is a confession. no disrespect, Cinzia. No disrespect, but I was right then.
For the sake of keeping within her poetic meter, which, Metatron acknowledges that she does for that very purpose. That idea of her cutting down the Odyssey has been misconstrued by people who haven't read her translation.
Well, but that's fine. I mean, if that's what happened, I don't know. I didn't read the reference material, but if that's true, then yeah, they'd be wrong. Great.
As she's cut out parts of the Odyssey that she didn't like to make Odysseus look weak, and she's abbreviated the story, which isn't true. Though he does make a really interesting point about slaves and the word complicated.
Right.
We'll discuss that in a second.
Thank you. Why are you making it about gender? Right. Is my question.
Male translators, then the male translator of male translators, like male translators,
The
male
collage.
translators by male translators. You see, male translators, like all the male translate, those words are not in
She's
the
right.
original text.
That's correct. Yeah.
The male translators have put them in there.
I do want to make it 100% clear, just for clarity, that I'm not accusing you, Lady of the Library, of being a misandrist, just so we're clear. But I do want to point out this logical inconsistency in your thought process, specifically when it comes to your argument against, say, Asmongold. You say that what Asmongold said was embarrassing, incorrect, wrong, because what he's saying, not Asmongold, guys, generally speaking, is that Emily Wilson's translation is wrong because she is a feminist progressive woman who is projecting her own ideas and politics into the text. You say that that's out of place, yet that's exactly what you're doing with the other previous male translators. No, literally it's the same. You are saying that the previous translations were not as good, and in fact a few times you don't like them at all, because they are male, you specified it 15 times by now, and because you think they are projecting their own politics and ideas onto the text. So it's really the same thing in reverse.
So why did I make it about gender? Well, honestly, I thought it was obvious in the video, but I think people got too caught up on my repetition of male when discussing translators and inferred from that I was disregarding male translators, saying that Wilson's translation was superior to male translators overall, and thus I was a misandrist, which is terribly bad faith interpretation of what I was saying.
Yeah, that's why I said you're not a misandrist. But then again, you couldn't see why, if you keep saying male translators, the male translator. If you do that, I could see how some people might get a little hint that you don't like their translation because they're male. But I'm glad you're clarifying that's not the case. Fantastic.
I really appreciate you not accusing me of misandry. Terribly bad faith interpretation of what I was saying. I really appreciate you not accusing me of misandry, because I'm not. I never said
Wonderful.
Wilson's was superior to all of the men's. And
Okay.
yet, repeating the word male was annoying to me as well, but the repetition was employed to prove the point that male translators were doing all the things that critics were accusing Wilson of doing.
I mean,
But they
fine,
were
it's your
angry at
video.
her for doing these things because she was a feminist. But men did all those things too. The men also manipulated the text, as you say. You have to. That's part of the art of translation.
Right.
So whether these men did that because they were or were not feminist is besides the point. Her word choices in translation have been viewed with suspicion and labelled as having an agenda because of her politics, as if men do not have agenda or politics or beliefs or biases or experiences. I had to say male translator over and
That's
over
fine,
again because Wilson is the only woman who has translated the Odyssey into English, and thus is the only one I had comparison with. The others are all men. And I think we can agree that men aren't amorphous blobs. And ironically,
Right.
I believe viewing them
I agree with that.
as such is misandrist. But if someone immediately considers a male translation to be inherently unbiased, completely neutral, and more correct by default, that's because they've never challenged or questioned what has been served to oneself by default.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm not aware of anyone within this discussion we are having that would say the Fagel translation is superior because it doesn't have a vagina. I'm not sure that there is anyone who's going to even try to feel that type of line of attack, but if they do, that would be rather weak. So, fantastic.
ignoring a man's gender, personhood, biases, politics, background, and preferences does them a disservice because it flattens men into non-human entities who are just all cut from the same cloth.
She's not. She's absolutely biased, and you could tell. And that's why you like her, by the way. You love the translation more than any other translation precisely because
So that was a
she's
misunderstanding.
making it so the female characters have a pivotal role, even though that's not reflective of the way Homer would have thought.
This is where I get a little confused
Let's
because females do have a pivotal role in the Odyssey. The
Right, but not a progressive, feminist, independent woman pivotal role.
Odyssey is so female forward and positive towards females that some scholars theorized back in the day that the Odyssey was written by a woman or
Which is nonsense.
women. Now, I've debunked that theory.
Thank
I've got
you.
a whole video on it.
Oh, I appreciate that. You see, it's good videos. You see, guys, don't go attack her. She's got the good videos as well.
By the way, years ago.
Did you... Oh, I'm going to ask you this one. Did you hear the one about Shakespeare being a woman and being black? What do you think about that? Because it's a new thing going around. I've already debunked it, but Shakespeare was a black woman of Jewish origin. Not joking. That's the new theory.
Just don't lose your mind on me. But you know, it's very woman forward, so I don't see why Wilson's translation did that anymore. Fagel's translation's very woman forward. The way Metatron tells me that I love Wilson's translation kind of gave me flashbacks to at school when kids tease each other by telling someone that they love something really embarrassing, like the ugly kid in class. Like, oh, I bet you love Chinsia. I bet you wish to kiss Chinsia. I bet you want to marry Chinsia. And you're going to have babies with Chinsia. Ew, gross. I mean, for starters, my favourite translation is Robert Fagel's translation.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Yeah, it was. I admit the mistake then. I misjudged you there without enough evidence. So fine. I apologize for saying that Wilson's translation was your favourite. Thank you for clarifying it.
I've talked about my love for Robert Fagel's translation for years, despite him putting in random insults, like calling people whores and sluts unnecessarily. It's still my favourite. I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
And this is emphasised by the fact that they don't call Agamemnon a bitch or a whore.
I push it again. They should have. They totally should have. They totally should have. Yeah. Oh, that would have been glorious. Could you imagine Achilles going to Agamemnon and saying, Agamemnon, you're my bitch. You're my bitch. And Agamemnon goes, what are you on about? Shut up, whore. Get dressed for battle, whore. I'm now going to petition for the intro. She's right? We need equality. Right. Okay? So if we're calling Helen of Troy a bitch, we should totally call Agamemnon a whore. Yes. I'm for it. And then I want to see what you think about the term slave. Because that's when she modified the test, in fact.
A lot.
So she said she liked that one. I actually had an interesting exchange just to give you a little extra lore, because I did leave a comment, which was this one here, under her video already. And I said, hey there, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video and create such a well-organized, meticulous response. I appreciate your scholarship, but most of all, how polite and respectful you were, a rare sight these days. Particularly with lefties making videos about me. Anyways, I actually don't mind the length of the response at all, but it will take me some time to go through and take notes. I, of course, wish to underline that I do not condone any of the horrible comments you have received, as I'm sure you also don't condone the horrible things some of your subscribers have said about me. We already clarified that one. It is unfortunately the nature of online interaction that there will always be some people who go too far when it's absolutely uncalled for. I do sincerely wish you happiness and success. I hope to interact with you again. God bless. That was my comment, and she responded. She said, hey, Metatron, thank you for watching. I know you're a parent with a newborn, so didn't expect you to have any time for it, but thank you for making some time. I completely believe you, and I hope you know likewise I don't condone it in return. It's not what I promote, and I hope the way I conduct myself demonstrates that. Yes, fantastic. So as you can see, difference of opinion, political and whatnot, even academic. It's not just all political. But as you can see, you can still be decent. Fantastic. Next. Being on different sides of the political spectrum always seems to give some people the courage to be disrespectful to the opposing side by default. Those would usually be keyboard warriors. Which isn't kind of conducive to accepting difference in a world where there is always be just that. But to reiterate, I really enjoyed your video and making response. On a silly note, here we are. My fiance and I loved your get dressed for battle whore remark that we say it to each other now whenever we get dressed. Wonderful. And we plan on saying it to each other on our wedding day too, when we part to get ready. Haha. I too wish you and your wee family happiness, good health and success. Take care. That's wonderful. Fantastic. So now you know, guys, we've influenced her. She now says, get ready for battle whore. That's fantastic. Let's go. So it's either you're not going to cover it, or if you are going to cover it, it's going to be really difficult to defend intellectually.
So Metatron talks really passionately. I loved his passion for this. He talks about losing the specificity of each of the enslaved people in Wilson's Odyssey when it is translated just to slave.
When it comes to when it is translated just to slave, exactly, so let's keep that one in mind. The slaves. The Odyssey is full of all sorts of servants, house servants, slaves of many types. It is a fact that by choosing to call them all slaves, differently from the text, which instead specifies the exact profession that these slaves had, she flattens all of it. In the original Odyssey, Homer uses the Greek term that properly translates a slave only a couple of times. He prefers to use demos and dmoe, which we may translate as domestics or household servants. We know that these were people who had been deprived of their freedom, prisoners of war and whatnot, and they were called this because they were property of the household from the point of view of the Greeks. In any case, this is different from the simple term for slave. That could be someone who breaks stones, someone who plows the land, another type of slave. Instead, the Odyssey tells us what these people do. The armory keeper, the swineherd, the hall keeper, the domestic servant, the one who brings food, a female attendant, household woman, maid-servant, nurse, housekeeper, herdsman, etc. Wilson often foregrounds the fact that this person is enslaved by using slave or slave girl, but removing the information that was presented from the original text. I'm going to say, and adding information, I'll get back to it. To give you two ideas, Eurycleia is not just generically a slave, she's Odysseus' old nurse, bought by Laertes, honored in the household and entrusted with intimate family duties. Her Greek identity is shaped by both enslavement and role. She's a nurse, household elder, and a slave woman. Eumaeus, the swineherd, is also a slave, but his function is highly specific. He's not merely a slave, he's the loyal pig herder, a manager of Odysseus' livestock. And all of this is lost when she just decides to call them all slaves, differently from Homer. This is an incorrect form of translation from any point of view that is professional. It is not what the text says, and it is also a political choice. In her notes, she specifically writes that she realizes that using only slaves is not correct, and it flattens things, because in the Homeric work, as we said, all of these are different occupations, but she wanted to emphasize the presence of slavery in the ancient world. Why? Well, it's a conscious political decision that has nothing to do with the translation of the text, and not for a million years that it has anything to do with the way ancient Greek considered slaves, which for them was absolutely normal. This is a very solid and strong position. I'm curious to see how she's going to counter it. So, if you really wanted to underline, you could have put a little asterisk every time you put one of these professions, and in the footnotes, underline that that was a slave. But removing it completely, awful translation choice.
Okay, but did Wilson remove all the details and flatten these people to be just slaves? Well, let's have a look at the text itself. So we have Eumaeus, the swineherd. He is referred to as both a slave and a swineherd. In Book 14, titled The Loyal Slave, Eumaeus is called a slave in the title, and he's also called a noble slave in line 5, and he's then called a slave later in lines 59, 80, and 525. But he is called a swineherd in lines 33, 122, 167, 4...
I see, that's the side she wants to begin her attack, but I didn't say in all situations. I never said that she removes all of them. I just said that she tends to swap it plenty of times, as you can see. She tends to swap it for slave only, even though the original text doesn't. That was my line of attack. And she absolutely does it for politics. She does it, and she says, because she wants to underline the tragedy of slavery. But the Greeks didn't think it was a tragedy at all. They thought it was based and true. So that is absolutely a political modernist revision of the text. And that's a problem because it opens a can of worms, in fact, Pandora's box, because we do know that there is a lot of sensitivity writers on the left, sensitivity readers on the left, that review all the texts and change words because they are offensive to modern sensitivities. This has been done, it's proven. They say cloud people instead of cloud men because you don't know. Why are you saying men? There is they don't say fat, or because, no, let's just say colorful, because they don't want to say, well, it's body shaming and that's not right. And it's a problem because it's in the same direction. Did she do it as badly as it is done today? No, but it is the same sentiment. Why are we judging the past, and why are we sanitizing the text from the perspective of the modern ideology? It's very dangerous and we shouldn't do it. The Greeks thought that having slaves was fine. Do I believe that? No. But do I need to sanitize the text to make it known, look, the tragedy, these people were slaves and it's awful? Not to them, though, and we are reading a translation. If you want to do that, write a paper about the Odyssey. This is my position. You can complain about it all you want. The Romans called slaves talking tools. Is that nice? No. Am I going to remove that, though, from the sources and swap it into a slave just so that talking tool is disrespectful? I'm not going to do that. Not in a translation. Not in a translation. Put a footnote.
402, 421 and 523. Then, in Book 15, he is called a noble swineherd in 303 and swineherd in 389. Interestingly, in Book 15, Eumaeus refers to Penelope's women as slaves, quote, "Ruin has befallen the house from those invaders. All her slaves miss talking to their owner, getting gossip, sharing some food and drink with her. The kind of thing that makes slaves happy." Now, are they just known as slaves? Are they flattened into just a slave, or do they have roles too? Well, the first mention of Penelope's girls and those who serve the household of Penelope and Odysseus, obviously, is in Book 1 of the Odyssey. Quote, "A girl brought washing water in a jug of gold, and poured it on their hands and into a silver bowl, and set a table by them. A deferential slave brought bread, and laid a wide array of food, a generous spread. A carver set beside the plates of meat of every kind, and gave them golden cups. A cutboy kept on topping up the wine. The suitors sauntered in and sat on chairs, observing proper order, and the slaves poured water on their hands. The house girls brought baskets of bread and heaped it beside them, and the houseboys filled their wine bowls up with drink." Then later in the Book 1 it says, "A slave brought out a well-tuned lyre, and gave it to Phemius, a man the suitors forced to sing for them." I may be misinterpreting what Metatron's point was, but from what I just read, the slaves were anything other than just simplified and flattened to just slaves. Their roles are still discussed, and there is more than just one word used. We have house girls.
Right, but what was the reason why she said slave even though Homer didn't? My point, my line of attack is the same, and I apologize if you misunderstood it. Homer didn't call it a slave in plenty of the situations when she did. That's really my first line of attack, particularly in connection, remember, I was responding to her saying she didn't alter it in the slightest, and she did not project modern feminist political ideas onto the text. These were your two lines of attack. And so to counterattack these arguments, I say she did, because in this situations, not the entirety of the Odyssey, but in these situations, she swapped the original term and put slave even though Homer didn't. That is a manipulation. The reason why she did it, as she herself admitted in interviews that she had, was for political modern reasons. That's it. I never really said she did it for the entirety of the text, though, which seems to be your counter-argument here. So these are lovely quotations that you brought, but they don't really attack my argument.
We have cutboy, we have a carver, and I could go through the entire Odyssey and look at all mentions of the slavery, but for brevity's sake, I'll look at Wilson's presentation of Eurycleia, Odysseus's nurse, who appears in both Book 1 and Book 19. So in Book 1, she's introduced as: "A loyal slave went with him, Eurycleia, daughter of Ops. She brought the burning torches. Laertes brought her many years before, when she was very young, for 20 oxen. He gave her status in the household equal to his own wife, but never slept with her. She brought the torches now. She was the slave who loved him the most, since she had cared for him when he was tiny." In Book 19, she is called the old slave woman. Odysseus says to her, "I will not spare you when I kill the rest, the other slave women, although you were my nurse." So he acknowledges the nurse there, and he sounds like a lovely guy, doesn't he? And then she's also referred to as a nanny and an old nurse. Yeah. And before anyone says, no, Wilson did not invent him threatening Eurycleia. He does it in every single version of the Odyssey. So yes, Wilson uses the word slave, but to suggest it removes all details of their roles in the Odyssey and flattens them down completely, ignores the text around them.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't flatten it completely, so I'm happy to readjust. I don't want to just be continuously like disagreeing. That's fine as a line of attack. That's okay as a position. But it's still a modification. If he doesn't say slave, even in a single passage, and she swaps it and puts slave, and then claims on a separate interview it was because of the tragedy of slavery, the way we understand it modernly, and she wanted to communicate that through the text, even though Homer did not think that way, I think it's inappropriate. And she does it a lot more than once. Does she do it on every single occasion possible? No, but that was never my claim. And with that, I complete my Odyssey. I'm more than happy to have another one if you want, but of course I understand these take quite a bit of time and energy. So anyways, thank you for making the video, Lady of the Library. Really appreciated your time, and I hope you noble ones, whoever is watching up to here, goodness gracious mate, go get a job. Go get a hobby. Thanks for watching. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us, form the wall, defend the truth.